with us. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Silvanus Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Silvanus Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Monday morning, getting to the tail end of January, or rather February, maybe even March. Okay, we'll figure it out as we go along this Monday. It looks like it's going to be one of those. Traffic is already building up on Mombasa Road today, taking us out into the city centre. In and outbound traffic has already begun right around Imaradaima, and that's because of the construction. We're likely to see it open up in just a bit, so it shouldn't be too terrible. The southern bypass has a little bit of action, as does the eastern bypass, then going towards that junction at the AP Training College, but not too crazy, so it's a good thing. On the Thika Superhighway, it's already building up. We're getting towards the Utali Drift with some traffic today. At Wayaki Way also, getting up there, coming off of James Gishuru out into the city. Use the Red Hill Link Road, at least for now. Let's see what Monday turns out to be, but now it looks like it shouldn't be too bad. Talk to us, should it? SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
First day of February 2022. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Hoping you had a lovely weekend, and thank you very much for choosing us as your only way to start the day. Ndu, how are you?
Fine.
It's so cold in here, man. Hey. Yeah, it's hot out there, but then, hey, in here.
It's a freezer.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
How was your weekend?
Great.
Was it warm or cold?
Cold.
It was cold weekend?
Well, it was hot. The temperatures are rising in this...
Yeah. Pretty much.
But I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm very well.
That's good. I'm happy to see you.
All right. Why are you looking at me like you want me to ask you? I'm not going to ask you.
Actually, no. I'm thinking. I'm actually asking myself, why are you speaking like a drunk? Hi. How are you? I'm all right. And I'm thinking, yeah.
Isn't it interesting, the mimicking that happens as human beings? Mm-hmm. As he started to speak that way, then I just kind of went along. It's what happens in life.
Actually, it's very true.
Yeah.
symptomatic of life.
Yeah.
Yes, but the question I was going to ask, I will still ask. So why are you asking this question so...
City.
Yes?
Maisha ni yangu.
Wow.
Hiyo ni kweli. Now you can ask me the greetings. Greet me now.
So how do you want me to ask you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well, thank you. And how are you doing this morning?
I would like to greet my mother and my mother-in-law and my wife.
And
now that you've asked me, I would also like to pass the salam to my wife.
Yes, but
who currently is in our home.
And in case you forgot, I'm also greeting your relatives whom I haven't met. Yes. So just so that they know that I've greeted them.
Everybody. You had a good weekend, though?
Yes, my weekends, as you know, have a consistency to them. They tend to be quiet. Yes.
Yes, okay. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. We have interesting lineup today of conversations that we're going to have. So we have a guest joining us at 8 a.m. and this is Professor Muga Ndu Okoh. Professor Muga Ndu Okoh, everybody knows, he's a law professor who's very, very, very vocal presently in support of Raila Odinga's presidential campaign. He'll be coming here to speak to us, and we talk about very many things that are happening in our politics. Okay? And that's at 8. At 9, we have Moses Kuria, the MP for Gatondo South. Remember, he just jetted back into the country from Dubai, where he underwent some surgery and operation after that accident that he had, which made him actually not be able to walk for more than 130 days. So back on his feet after 130 days or so, he was back in the country. He had a so-called prayer and Thanksgiving rally over the weekend. A lot of things were said there. There's some controversial stuff. But we want to first of all understand what happened to his legs and his feet. And this groundbreaking operation that he went through, what was it all about? And then he'll tell us about the politics of the country. All right? Keep it here for that and more. Coming up, let's look at COVID in numbers.
All right, let's look at what's happening around the world. 424,990,285. That's the most recent tally of COVID-19 cases. I want us to look at what's happening in Kenya at the moment with those numbers. According to the latest from the Ministry of Health, we're looking at a positivity rate of, just a minute, if that's going to pull up and cooperate with me this morning. We're looking at a positivity rate now of 0.5% and 29 new cases in the last 24 hours from a sample size of 5,547. 2 recorded deaths now. These came in over the last few days. So positivity rate is still very low. That's what you're trying to look at and keep it at that for the meantime. Okay, so what else are we looking at around the world? We're looking at protests and tear gas, fines, hundreds of people around most parts of Western Europe because they're saying, you know what, we are not able to continue with these measures that you're giving to us. And so, you know what, please. Now let us also talk about what doesn't make us comfortable. Australia reopens its border to foreign visitors. It allows tourists and families to reunite for the first time in nearly 2 years. So remember, just around Christmas, when people had made their travel plans 2 years ago, Australia locked everything down. So families were separated, people could not enjoy their holiday, tickets had to be rebooked, etc., etc. So 2 years after that, it said, you know what? It's okay. They had imposed some of the world's strictest travel bans after shutting itself off in March 2020 due to COVID. Tearful reunions at Sydney Airport Monday, which is, at the tail end of today, as hundreds of people started arriving on flights. One young girl talked about how she had not seen her grandfather in 2 years. And double jab visitors do not need to quarantine, but unvaccinated travelers must do so in a hotel for up to 14 days at their own expense. So more than 50 international flights due to land in Australia Monday. Travelers can enter all states except Western Australia, which remains closed until the 3rd of March and will require 3 jabs. So, according to the Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment, Dan Tehan, what wonderful, wonderful news for our country as the tourism industry and the 660,000 people who are employed in it, right? So 2 years of no movement. Finally, the gates are opened and the business as well as families can now celebrate.
Wow. How's the Queen doing?
Well, she's all right.
Okay. Tested positive for COVID and has mild symptoms.
She's a feisty lady, that one.
Yes. She'll be all right. It's 6:15. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, and Facebook. Are you online? Say hello to us. We'll be taking a roll call shortly.
We will.
After taking a look at the weather forecast for Nairobi, for other cities around the country and around the world.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation, because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In Nairobi at 17, we'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. In Nakuru, mostly clear conditions at 15, highs of 28 and lows of 15. 13 will be the low in a clear. Nyeri at 13, we'll see highs of 28. 23 will be the high in a clear. Eldoret, we'll see lows of 11. Mostly clear in Mombasa this morning at 24, highs of 33, and we'll see highs of 32 in Malindi, where it's mostly clear at 26. Partly cloudy conditions at 19 in Kisumu, highs of 26, while in Kakamega, we'll see highs of 25. It's currently partly cloudy at 16. Mostly clear in Kampala at 20, highs of 25 and lows of 20. It's a cloudy morning, waking up in Dar es Salaam at 27. We'll see highs of 33. Clear conditions at 15 in Johannesburg, highs of 28. While it's clear at 26 in Lagos, we'll see highs of 34 and lows of 25. Going into afternoon Monday in Beijing, it's 1 degree and sunny. We'll see highs of 5 and lows of -8. While at 6 degrees, Paris is cloudy. Going to highs of 11 and lows of 5. Clear at 5 in London, highs of 12 today. And New York, Sunday night, 1 degree and clear. Coming into Monday, we'll see highs of 3 and lows of 1.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
After 6, who's online?
Quite a number of folks waking up this Monday morning. Odero tuned in. Moses says lower food prices, hashtag lower food prices. It's getting a little bit crazy for folks. Peter Kimani is present this morning. Millicent Demesi says the only way to start is to lower food prices.
Lower food prices hashtag. Okay, so it started just the other day. There's a whole conversation. MP Kimani, Shongwa, Tanga, UDA, lower food prices. Where have you been?
Or why haven't you been in the conversation when people have been begging you to lower food prices?
Yeah.
Where have you been?
The politicians who are pushing this now, where have you been?
And it's unfortunate because, unfortunately, it's as though we can see right through, because do you really want to lower food prices, or is this a political move that you're making?
Anyway, go on.
Phil says, you know what? I think the cost of living in Kenya is too high. Kenyans need to hit the streets and demand food prices to be lowered. This government of Uhuru Raila imetufinya sana. Some can't afford to put 2 meals per day on the table. Isn't this the truth? Okay, hi guys. How was your weekend? Tuned in from Mombasa. Now you're back in Yali MCR. Okay, good morning, Team TSR from County 016. That's County what, CT?
Which one?
16. 016.
Who doesn't know 16, surely?
Okay, sawa. Ni sawa.
We've talked about this very many times on this show, Ndu.
You know, before you get to 16, you start with a 1.
I got to share a funny story with you guys.
Okay, carry on.
So I was in the company of some children yesterday. So I'll tell you how.
What's the range of the age of the children?
So between 3 and 14. Okay?
Wide range.
I was quite traumatized. Anyway, so we're driving along and we see a turkey. Ndu knew it was a turkey. The 11-year-old said, "What is that thing?"
That is a valid question.
Said, "Now, this is a turkey." Said, "No, it's not. That's not a turkey. I've seen turkeys in pictures. This is not a turkey." I said, "Okay, now, in real life, away from the internet and the tabs upon which you spend your days, this is actually what a turkey in Kenya looks like." Just to let you know, kids need to go outside more often. Anyway,
so you're saying the turkey in the picture is different from turkey in real life?
So I'm told, because the one they saw on the road clearly looked very different from the one.
Did you probe further and find out what they thought it was?
I was asked, what is that thing?
Yes, but they must have thought it was something. Because clearly.
Some wild animal that looked like an alien or a Martian who was going to attack them. He didn't understand what it was.
But why I'm asking is because children know how to associate.
What could they possibly have been associating this thing with?
That's what
scary creature.
That's what they would have told you. Because when my daughter was, I think, 3 years old, we took her to the animal orphanage. And the ostriches. She looked, pointed, and said, "Cuckoo."
It's like the story of the kid who was taken to Masai Mara.
And everyone was standing around, they burst into laughter. She had
like the kid in the Masai Mara who saw a giraffe and he said, "Dog."
So she had been taught well. She knew what a chicken looked like.
Yes.
Now, this is big chicken.
Yeah.
Big bird.
Yes.
He's one of dog, giraffe and dog.
Dog.
You know, that's a child.
That's giraffe and dog.
Dog.
That's a child who's been
4 legs, animal, dog.
You know the science fiction movies, eh? When there's a human being from another planet with the leg of an ostrich and the head of a dog. Those ones. Anyway.
Anyway, Shauna, good morning, I beg. We can see all of you. Odima, Wino, Andrew Franklin. You're tuning from Bernard Estate. Looking forward to Macau Mutua comic relief on steroids. Wow, okay. Good morning to you, sir. Quite a number of people online this morning. Bonfas, Kiplagat, good morning. Tuned in from Maseno. Constance Chilese tuned in from Zambia this morning.
Yeah.
We can see you and everybody else. Thanks for waking us up and waking up with us this morning.
Asante. Actually, let's just give some special recognition to Andrew Franklin. He comments on every conversation as it's going on every day.
Yeah.
Andrew, yes, we notice everything that you say and we acknowledge you. CT.
We are in the northern part of Africa. Okay. And we will begin with Morocco.
Oh, in the proverb.
Okay.
In the land of the proverbs.
Got it.
I did say that come this week we'd be going to North Africa. Then we'd move.
You're a man of your word.
If you are a peg, endure the knocking. If you are a mallet, strike.
Nice.
Wow.
Hey.
The depth of that for a Monday morning is exquisite.
All the way from Casablanca.
Marrakesh.
If you are a peg, endure the knocking. If you're a mallet,
strike.
Yeah.
Choose your poison. Good one. Let's look at the newspaper headlines. Remember, www.standardmedia.co.ke. You get access to the standard stories. And also, if you want the app, download it. Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Standard e-paper. What's in the papers?
Quite a lot. But one is that, one interesting one here that we are seeing is that there's a girl who is, a family who is demanding, it's covered in a number of headlines today, a number of papers today, but there's a girl who's demanding that the state pay her 14 million shillings. It's been almost 6 years since she last saw with her 2 eyes. This is all in the midst of all the rallies and all the things that are happening, right? Every day, Miss Quinta Amondi wonders how different her life would have been had her left eye not been taken out by a bullet that was meant to stop a remandee from escaping the Migori GK prison on May 27, 2016. For months, she lay in hospital, but a game of hide and seek between the Attorney General's office and her lawyer threatens to deny her justice. This is carried on page 2 and 3 today. For months, she lay in hospital. She then rejoined her classmates who had gained a 4-month advantage as she lay in hospital. She went on to score a C- in the 2018 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examinations. It was only after finishing her secondary school that her father sued the prison warder and the state in December 2018. They won the case in August 2019. However, almost 3 years later, Ms. Quinta Amondi is yet to receive a single cent of the 14 million shillings awarded to her for damages. A game of hide and seek between the Attorney General's office and the victim's lawyers threatens to deny Ms. Amondi justice. At St. Albert's Ulanda Girls High School, Ms. Amondi's participated in sporting activities and had been part of her school sports team in the Lake Region's Term 2 secondary school games at the Migori Boys High School. Now 21. She recalls she was watching a handball game at around 10 a.m. Unknown to the hundreds of students in the open field, an inmate, Rogers Odhiambo, was escaping from custody at the Migori GK prison and was running towards the game's venue. To elude the prison warders hot on his heels, he believed that his only escape would be by using the students as human shields to prevent the officers from shooting him. Well, he was wrong. A warder named Simon Dunda, armed with a G3 rifle loaded with 20 rounds, spotted the offender and fired several bullets at him. One of those bullets hit Miss Amondi's left eye. Accidentally, the bullet hit Quinta Amondi, which was damaged extensively. This was according to the recovering report. An initial investigation by the Migori Director of Criminal Investigations classified Miss Amondi's shooting as a misadventure, adding that the officer did not intend to harm her. Shell-shocked and in anguish, then 16, she was rushed to Ombo Hospital and later to the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital for treatment. Ojwando, the victim's father, then working in Nairobi, was told about the unfortunate happenings and quickly rushed to Eldoret to visit his daughter. The bullet maimed her, according to him, and her entire left eye was then removed surgically, and her attending doctor informed that the hole exposed her to meningitis. He transferred his daughter to Nairobi, where she stayed with him for 3 months to recuperate. The bullet injured her badly. All we wanted was reconstructive surgery. We went to court for 7 months, and the court ruled in her favor. A subsequent facial bone scan conducted in Nairobi revealed extensive damage, including a nasal injury that pushed her nose to the left. So there was all this happening. And the court awarded her 14 million shillings. And this was money that was to be paid by the state. This was in 2019. We are now in what?
2022.
We're in 2022. The last time the family heard about the 14 million shillings for general damages, an additional 73,000 for special damages, was on August 14th, 2019, when the chief magistrate in Migori ruled on the matter. He found that the plaintiff has brought out a case fit for the court's award of general damages for pain and suffering. But they've not heard about a cent of that money since then.
You know, some of these things you'd assume are pretty straightforward.
Right. Court rules, pay the girl, let's move. Right?
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Court awards, hell begins.
That's it. Worse than the hell of
Did
going
you even
through
have to
this
go to
injury.
court?
Valid question.
I mean, it's very clear the circumstances under which this child was shot. All right? And what he went through. It's very, very clear. Did we even have to go to take the matter to court? Or would you argue that you're taking the matter to court so that the court can determine the amount of damages to be paid? Could they have had a conversation? Government, family, this is what, all right, so this is what has happened to this girl and this is how we can go about it. Fine, they went to court. Why is it taking so long to compensate this child?
Why? 3 years later, nobody's saying a thing. We're talking about the father having written to the Commission on Administration of Justice and the State Department of Correctional Services last year. He pleaded, please resolve the matter, citing the potential health risks to her. Because let's be honest, this young girl is still walking around with a hole in her face. This money was not for them to enjoy a good life. This money was for reconstructive surgery to close this hole because she's been in danger of, contracting other diseases for at least the last 6 years. She's walking around with a hole in her face and they're saying, look, we need this money, not because we want to go to Disneyland. We want to be able to fix her face. What are we talking about? And then on top of that, the court has awarded us this money. We're not begging you. The court has
And
said,
how much are we talking about?
14 million plus 73,500 for special circumstances. So come on, what are we talking about here?
Like really?
Oh, come on. No. She can't do anything.
Like
she can't
really?
be out. So you can understand. Because she's so susceptible to disease and infection, she can't be out for long periods of time. She has to be indoors. She can only be out for very short periods of time at a go. She has to be covered up all the time. And they're saying, you know what, the surgery would have sorted this out. And here we are, dilly-dallying, over 14 million that the state can pay.
Okay. It's annoying. It's really annoying.
We're back at it again.
And you know what they're doing now? Between Solicitor General, Attorney General, they're saying, we never got the letter, we didn't get communication, we are not sure what the award says. Nonsense. Back and forth.
It's that whole thing of...
And then people who work in government wonder why it is that there is such a high level of mistrust. They wonder why. Court trusted, it's government. Court does its job. Awards, it's government. Now you're telling me this same government cannot communicate with itself to ensure that what they have decided should happen. Because it is the court, that arm of government, that does such things. So this conversation is about how it is government cannot communicate with themselves to ensure
that what one of them says is actually done.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is just one of very many cases of compensation.
Absolutely.
You know, when you hear of human-wildlife conflict and compensation.
Do you know the monies that are owed are in the billions? It's not in the hundreds of millions.
Yep.
It's in the billions.
Yep.
And it's a conversation that goes up to even 20 years. Not 5, 6, 7, 20.
It's the same nonsense.
But you know what you'll find is also strange with these matters, huh?
Yeah.
If you follow the thread and the train of these matters, some of them have even been settled by the respective governments. Departments. The question you ask is, where does the money go to?
Yep. Somewhere on paper, this payment has been made.
Yes.
But Vituko ground,
different.
28 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, we see the build-up on Langata Road. We see the same thing happening on Jogo Road and parts of Huru Highway this morning. Without a doubt, we will continue seeing some drama on Huru Highway. So you want to prepare for that. How's this as an option? If you can avoid it completely. It's not the only way to get into the city. You might use a longer route, but you will not be stuck in the drama of 4 hours on Uhuru Highway, that 1 kilometer stretch. All right, we're also seeing it building up on the Thika Superhighway. It's going way past the Utali Drift, way past the junction of Outer Ring, and it's now greeting Zimmerman. Actually, no, it's fully embraced Zimmerman. It's going all the way beyond that. Clayworks in the opposite direction, and then Kamiti Road all the way far back as that. Traffic is not saying good morning in a nice way today. So watch out for that, guys. Slowly, you'll make it into the city. But this one is definitely going to take a while. We're also seeing a build up on Kiambu Road today. Juja Road is also doing its thing today, as is Kangunda Road, trying to get into the city. Manyanja then connecting with Outer Ring. Outer Ring is going to take a big hit. We can already see it happening early this morning. How are you planning out your Monday? Because the streets are already packed and we're likely to see bumper-to-bumper situations in many, many parts. So plan ahead. Use the longer routes. You'll get there quicker. Let's talk SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Continues. So remember what's happening in some parts of this country with regards to insecurity. Let's specifically talk about Kerio Valley, right? Oh, Kerio Valley, we are going to disarm people here forcefully. The government said, we are going to increase the number of police officers on the ground. The government said, we are going to make sure that there is going to be security here. The government said, you saw it in the news. A bus at night, full of school children, bandits come out, bandits spray bullets to the bus, they kill the driver and they injure students. Yes?
Yes.
Now that Tot High School in Elgeyo Marakwet, whose bus was attacked and the driver killed, has been given all-round police protection. Rift Valley Regional Commissioner Mohammed Maalim says the officers were deployed to the school on Saturday and they would operate day and night until calm is restored. The deployment follows an attack by suspected bandits on school buses in Kerio Valley, which also left 2 teachers and 13 learners injured. The regional commissioner yesterday said the school's principal would continue to run the institution's affairs, even as the government ensures safety of the learners. So this is a matter that has been here. New regional commissioner comes in and he said his first priority would be to pacify this region. He has not even been able to make a move. They have gone and started shooting at children. Now that is even making it worse. But what is even more disturbing is what the Cabinet Secretary for the Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, said. He first of all seemed to focus more on why was the bus out after 6 p.m.? Why? That principal should be arrested. Why would he let the bus be out after 6 p.m., especially knowing this region is so restive? So they said, take action on the principal. The regional commissioner says, no, now if we start taking action on the principal, everybody here is traumatized. Taking action on the principal would even make matters worse. So we are not. The principal will continue running the school. We will not deal with that now. Matiang'i's first reaction, instead of talking about we have people here, we have people who still have arms, we have people who are attacking left, right, and center. We don't have sufficient intelligence on the ground to be able to curb this insecurity.
Arrest the principal.
Arrest the principal.
Come on.
Somebody running away from his failures. Because I think at some point we need to say, right here, there's something wrong with the Ministry of Interior. Because it's not the Cabinet Secretary. Remove Matiang'i today, bring in somebody. Say who? Give a name.
Joe
Musheru. Make him Interior CS. Same. Even if you appointed Raila Odinga as Interior CS, same.
Even if you appointed William Ruto
as Interior CS, same. What's wrong?
The insecurity issue is not being handled head on.
It isn't. The issue isn't insecurity. No. Everything points to a multifaceted entity that has independent units working against each other. How do you explain a ministry that is well-resourced in terms of, when you look at the budget, you cannot say that they are not well-resourced.
Yep.
They even keep getting more money. Now, after that has happened, what do you hear? An escalation of insecurity. And yet, we have security units who are trained to handle these specific issues. This isn't a riot in a town where you send riot police. And the areas where these incidents are occurring are areas that have had these incidents occurring before. It's like now we are being brought to the fore to accept that these are things that you expect from these areas.
Yeah.
So we expect people to die. We expect vehicles carrying people to be shot at. We expect
children to be
This is what we should expect.
It's normal. You know what? In that, indeed, when we say the insecurity, look, the business angle of it is why insecurity has to continue for a lot of folk. Take your pick. that there was the commercial side of conflict that cannot be ignored. And I keep saying that there's somebody for who the dollars are making sense right
but
now.
who are they and how powerful can they be?
I mean, come on, you have conflicts within,
We're talking about
within boundaries. Of
Mzee Moi, president, Insecurity, Kerio Valley, there. Kibaki, president, Insecurity, Kerio Valley, there. 9 years of Uhuru Kenyatta, Kerio Valley. It doesn't matter who becomes the 5th president.
It's sweet, I'm telling you.
So who is this that is so powerful that no leader, no administration
Isn't it
can
someone who
actually
is
deal
so
with this?
powerful that doesn't matter who it is? And is it just one individual, or is it a dragnet of individuals who are saying, yeah, well, we've made our money from this and we can continue making more from it? Look at the perpetuation of war in so many countries that we look at it today. Do you think that it's just one individual who is benefiting from it over time? Look at DRC, look at South Sudan, look at what happened in the Middle East. There are individuals who, even some of the most books have been written on these things. War has been perpetuated for years because individuals are making money from it.
In many of those cases and examples, you'll find that there is an unstable government. So, because of that instability in government, let's say DRC, there are these rebels who've taken over, they're controlling large swaths of land. Okay, so you can say that these powerful forces have even been able to wrestle control from government. In this country, the single most powerful entity is the government of the Republic of Kenya.
So tell me this, riddle me this, that here you are, single powerful entity, the government, sees things going south regularly. There's a cycle of this conflict over and over again. If anything, it gets worse, right? Stable government. In your mind, stable government would want to do something about this and eradicate this insecurity rather, but chooses not to. So there is something to be gained from that status remaining that way. Not lost.
What you're saying is true, but consider also, if you are in a position of leadership, the chain of command and how it is that information gets to you. Let me give a benign example of my favorite topic, the express highway.
Sure, let's call it that.
Yes. It's the express highway. Is this something else?
No.
How many times have we heard the pronouncement that it's going to be completed since last year? The president even talks about it. It means somewhere along the line, the president has been given that information. The president doesn't know when that road is going to be complete until he is told. Take it to security matters. There's a chain of command. Even if you're the IG, you are going to wait until the people who actually are in charge in the areas where you've sent them send you a report. Now you can verify it. I'm going somewhere with this discussion. Ethiopia had similar problems for the longest time. They have a devolved system. You know what they did? They devolved security. Now that has its own problems, as we can see now.
Because you create demigods.
Yes, but they devolved security. So when you have insecurity, you are not going to talk to you just ask, excuse me, who is in charge of security here? Because they're locals, they're your people, it is you who you've appointed them.
Do you think that in the cyclical administrations, as this has been happening, that those questions have not been asked, and then there's no realization that the answers are not being given? And that's why I'm telling you that there's a certain comfortability from all of this.
Actually,
because there's somebody who is benefiting.
I think answers are given, and in response to what you're saying, and to actually support it, answers are given.
And people are comfortable.
Workable suggestions are given, but
as to how to get rid of it.
But they're ignored.
Absolutely ignored, because you know that if you do it, you will get rid of your cash cow.
Cash cow is one. Yeah. The other is there are people who thrive on the back of insecurity.
Of course.
Just like there are people who thrive on the back of underdevelopment, forced absence of development. So you'll find, you ask, but wait, how is it that there are monies that have been given and yet this hasn't happened? Yes, the profit element is always there, but it isn't necessarily just cash. It's social profit. Some people figure out, for this to continue working, we need to keep this place
Like this.
Yes.
Absolutely, I hear you. I remember, and I give you an example of Buhari, for example. What was happening, what continues to happen in Sambiso Forest with these kidnappings and all of this, is that just as he was about to be elected for his second term, what happened? Suddenly, there were people who were rescued, and he said that he had found Shakur and all of this. Okay, then we re-elect you. Then what happens?
Back to factory settings.
The 2 days after Buhari was re-elected, 300 people were kidnapped from a school. So I think that there's I hear what you're saying, that what it does offer you is a continuance of a particular position, so that every now and then you come and give people a little bit, just a taste, or like Holy Communion, to let them know, yes, we can do something about this, and you retain your position of power.
But we also I get the impression that even those who are charged with ensuring that these security measures are taken, some of them seem reluctant to actually operationalize it. Not because they're profiting it, they probably don't see the need where they should put their lives in danger. And so it begs the that eternal question, do we resource our security personnel adequately to deal with these problems? I have to ask that question.
Because they'll say, not my monkeys, not my forest, let's just move on. When I'm out, maybe the next person can come and deal with it.
When you hear tales of how these bandits are armed, they're not armed with bows and arrows.
They're heavily armed.
And they're not armed with G3, where you fire one shot and then you sort of like crack, 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 crack. You get another. These are semi-automatic weapons. These are serious weapons. Where do bandits get semi-automatic weapons?
But that's what I'm telling you. It's funded by somebody. It's funded by someone. And that's the business of conflict is not cheap, man. It's funded by somebody.
Just somebody needs to be found. Hata sisi tukule kitu kidogo basi.
Wow.
It's 6:45. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Wellington is tuned in live from Garissa. Karibu sana. And in Isinya is Augustine. Zambia is Nivendaka. Everybody who's watching us online, very good morning to you. Time for us to take a quick break. We'll look at more headlines shortly.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Evan Wasingishi was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay.
Mornings done right.
I find actually particularly interesting. And this is something on page 8 of the Star. There's a petitioner who has asked senators to amend the Employment Act of 2007 to give leave rights to women who miscarry or suffer stillbirths. Remember, maternity leave is only offered to women who have actually delivered.
Live births.
And they are saying, you know something? The lady is, her name is Julia Adifu, saying women who undergo this misfortune of either having miscarrying or have stillbirths, unfortunately, it's not understood. But the problem they have is probably even more than somebody who has actually given birth. So, because they were anticipating birth, this leave that is afforded women who give birth to children who are alive should also be afforded to such women.
Oh, I agree 100%.
It caught my attention. I thought, now this...
It's a very good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree
and not
100%.
just the women, but just, let's say, couples.
Yeah.
Those people need a lot of psychosocial support. Say, working women who miscarry or experience stillbirths are only allowed either compassionate or sick leave, which is inadequate for them. It is true, it is inadequate.
It is. As someone who's been through both experiences, your mind and your body actually you need the time to just be. And 7 days doesn't quite do it, because you can imagine for the last 10 months how you've prepared your mind, how you've prepared everything about you. And then suddenly that situation is not there, right? And the trauma that you've had to go through, even coming out of it, you're not going to get over it in 7 days. I mean, you're not going to get over it in 3 months. You're not going to get over it in 3 years. But you do need some time to just kind of, come back to grips with.
So she's petitioned senators. Why Senate?
This matter, I do not know why it went to the Senate directly, but that is how it is reported.
Okay.
Yes. She took this matter to the Senate. And the Senate Speaker commented on it. What is clear from this particular article is that it has had overwhelming support from the Senate. Overwhelming. There's nobody who seems to have protected. Everyone has said, this thing, long overdue, well thought out. It's a good thing somebody actually thought of this.
Yeah.
We've ignored this, and yet it's absolutely important.
Absolutely.
No, we're talking about bills before the Senate. There's a private member's bill that's before the Senate by Senator Cherargei. This is basically riding on the wave that's in some parts of Europe, where it's been adjudged and it's also been adopted that if you work in an 8-hour workday, your boss should not be calling you in the middle of the night with some newfound emergency. Okay? You should not be receiving calls from your employer beyond working hours. Yes? And this has caught on in some countries. Now, Senator Cherargei has also brought in the same. Now, look, to go with the new digital trend where some people are even working from home. So you're working from home, and so, you have access to the internet, you have access to your mobile device, you have access to all forms of communication. Basically, you don't need to be sitting in a desk in the office to work. We have seen very many employers then forwarding work and expecting results even beyond working hours. So at 6 p.m., there's an email that has been sent to you. And this is a report that is needed tomorrow morning before our 8 a.m. meeting with the board, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And so Senator Cherargei is saying, look, we need to protect workers from this kind of thing.
Cherargei has a point.
Indeed he does. I agree.
He has a point. Because many employers don't even seem to understand that the contractual understanding that they have is that you work a certain number of hours. You will come to work in the morning, you will be leaving at night. And it's considered normal.
It's not normal.
No. There's nothing normal about it. And that is why in many employment contracts consider the aspect of overtime. Meaning you've gone beyond the stipulated and required legal time within which you should work. So if you work a little extra, you are then given a compensation that's supposed to be commensurate with the hours that you're putting in.
And if you're not, actually, then they're within grounds to take it to court.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
This is going to be dicey.
If people are aware of their rights, the industrial courts will be quite busy.
Yes, and it's going to be dicey.
But it should be. I mean, if we're looking at the rights of workers and how it should be protected, I think it is correct. Because just like the worker needs to work, the worker also needs to rest.
Indeed.
For their work to be productive, that rest is an integral part of work.
Hey, how will some people survive?
Where?
Some bosses just, something comes up, you call.
Pick up the phone.
Eric,
it's on a Sunday.
Eric, it's even trickier if you're working with people who are not in your country and in different time zones.
That's the thing now. You see, the thing is, how do you balance? If, for example, we say that we want Kenya to be a hub for business process outsourcing, so how do you balance those?
I think
you've got to make your work understand. I mean, everybody to understand that here I'm awake. If I need to sync my hours with American time, then I'll be working at night. If I'm to sync my hours with Australian time, I'll be working early morning.
Let me tell
but you can't just be calling me at
anytime because you are awake.
Because you are awake.
You are awake.
I should also be awake.
You call me, I should be awake.
During working hours is even interesting. But what is even more bizarre, you're on leave.
Yeah.
Someone is going to call you are on leave.
Yeah, there's that thing that we need.
Yeah, you are on leave.
It doesn't really matter that you're on leave. It doesn't even come into consideration of people. Let me tell you really quickly.
Yes.
The Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. Remember that Kenyatta National Hospital had a bit of a quibble the other day about some money missing. Remember that?
COVID money.
Yeah. Now, COVID money also is being asked about at the MTRH. The management has been put to task, or rather is on the spot, for alleged misuse of 115 million shillings that had been allocated for the fight against COVID-19. Auditor General, yet again, Nancy Gadongo, has invited the EACC to investigate the institution over the manner in which the funds were spent. It is recommended that further investigation should be conducted to establish any criminal activities. And this came from her report. The audit covered the period between March 13th and June 31st, 2020, just 3 months. It shows that MTRH received 765 million of the that MTRH received 764.5 million of the 214.92 billion shilling loan to the national government. The funds were received in a special deposit account held at the Central Bank of Kenya. They dispersed in 2 batches of 85 million and 30 million. While appearing before the PAC of the National Assembly, the Chief Executive, Dr. William Arasa, could not explain how the funds were used. This is notwithstanding the hospital's management irregularly paid a 2.7 million in allowances to ineligible staff after a circular issued by the SRC. The audit further shows that 1.1 million was recorded as overpayment of allowances, which exceeded SRC recommendations. Now, when this overpayment, where it went, now that's what we don't really know.
You think this is bizarre? You've heard of Kenya Meat Commission, haven't you?
Yes.
Now, the Auditor General, in pursuant of her duties,
she's busy.
Yes. 3 Kenya Meat Commission title deeds go missing in National Bank.
3 what?
Kenya Meat Commission title deeds go missing in National Bank. Kenya Meat Commission, land owned by it had title deeds. And there are many. It's not one, because Kenya Meat Commission owned land in many places.
Yes.
In this country. All right? Mombasa, Kajiado, Mvoko, Kitusuru. They own land.
Did you say Kitusuru?
Yes. I'm not making it up. I'm just telling you. They own land there. Nanyuki. Kenya Meat can own land in Kisumu. So now, Auditor General, in pursuant of her duties, realized, all government loans that were given on account of the title deeds were all paid. And what was used as collateral were the title deeds. But now, looking for those title deeds, some can't be found. And in looking into this matter even further, they found some had been sold.
By the bank.
They don't give details. They just give details of the land and what they were sold for.
This is like a movie, man. Sold the title deed belonging to the commission.
Sold.
And it has been placed as collateral with the bank.
With the bank.
Yes.
The loan has been repaid.
Yes.
So is there anything that shows that the bank returned the collateral after receiving the full payment?
That one, there's no evidence. So how they disappeared is a different matter.
This is stuff movies are made of.
How they got sold also now is a subject of further query.
Give us that story a bit in a bit more detail after we hear the news.
Yes, this one I want to hear. Let's talk about making the internet a safer place really quickly. So 8th of February is when we marked Safer Internet Day. The Communications Authority of Kenya is really keen on making sure that the internet is a safe place where children can play and learn. So what did we do? Launch Cyber Soldiers. It's a safe and easy and fun way for our kids to learn about the threats that they will face on the internet. It's available for free play on the website, but it's best played on a phone or a tablet. So what does it do? Teaches our kids how to recognize threats on the internet and how to fight them. The objective is to learn how to deal with online threats and vulnerabilities. Parents and children can access the game and online safety tips on www.ca.go.ke. Take a look and we'll look into more of these details as the minutes tick by about how we can make the internet a safer place for all of us.
And keep it right here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. Remember, 8 a.m. we have Professor Mutua. 9 a.m. we have Moses Kuria joining us in the studio. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting around the country on SpiceFM and also around the country and the world on SpiceFM KE, on Facebook and YouTube. A very good morning to you. It's coming up to 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Aseto. The Orange Democratic Movement Party leader and presidential hopeful Raila Odinga has promised to bring the Mombasa Freeport project to life if elected in the August polls. Odinga, while speaking at the Tononoka grounds in Mombasa, said Mombasa has vital economic power in East Africa due to the port and will be one of his main agendas under his presidency. The former Prime Minister further added that his government will establish special economic zones to boost youth employment in the area, citing Dubai as an example. The Mombasa Freeport project is in Kenya's Vision 2030 development program and is set to be implemented on a 1,000-acre free trade zone near the current Mombasa port. And Deputy President William Ruto has stated that he will take full credit for the Jubilee government's project success during his 10-year rule. Responding to claims from his political opponents that he failed the Jubilee government, Ruto stated that he should not be lectured on his performance while in office. During the roadside rally in Meru County, he argued that the opposition party has no role in the current government and should not be associated with it. Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja movement was also slammed by the second in command, who challenged them to stop using President Kenyatta as a political shield and face him ahead of the August polls. A National Assembly Speaker, Justin Muthui, has been installed as the new leader of the Democratic Party. Speaker Muthui, who is also the party's presidential candidate, was installed as the DP party leader in a National Delegates Conference after Joseph Munyaobi quit the position, a position he has held for the last 20 years. Accepting the new position, Speaker Muthui said, his main agenda, if elected president, will be to fight the ghost of corruption. In addition, Muthui vowed to have preferential taxes to young budding entrepreneurs by having tax rebates and other tax incentives and tax breaks targeting the youth. The judiciary has concluded the first session of judges' training on election disputes ahead of the August polls. The first session of the training, which began with the High Court judges, was conducted for 3 days. The training sessions are being conducted through the Kenya Judiciary Academy in conjunction with the Judiciary Committee on Elections. The sessions also cover areas such as the use of technology in elections, election planning and preparation, hearing of election petitions, judicial ethics and adjudication of election disputes, among other issues relevant to the judiciary. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has welcomed an announcement by the United Arab Emirates to establish an innovation and entrepreneurship center in Kenya. The announcement is part of the outcomes of the President's bilateral talks with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and the Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces in Abu Dhabi, following the talks held during President Kenyatta's working visit to the UAE. The Crown Prince of the UAE directed the Khalifa Fund for Enterprise Development to establish an Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center in Kenya. The Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center will focus on launching programs, workshops and initiatives geared towards providing aspiring and established Kenyan entrepreneurs with guidance on how they can inject innovation into their entrepreneurial endeavors to boost the national economy. And a new seasonal forecast for the drought-stricken Horn of Africa shows many parts of the region can expect a good rainy season. The forecast by the World Meteorological Organization is good news for millions of people suffering acute hunger because of poor harvest caused by several years of drought. However, WMO spokesperson Claire Knowles said the good news is coupled with warnings that people should still prepare for what she called a worst-case scenario. To sports, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored his first 2 goals for Barcelona in a convincing 4-1 win in Valencia, lifting his side to 4th place in La Liga. It was the 8th and 9th goal of the season for the former Arsenal striker, who last found the net for the Gunners in October in a 3-1 win over Aston Villa. Frankie de Jong and Pedri also scored for Barcelona, who looked much improved after struggling at the start of the season. Carlos Sola scored a consolation goal for the locals. And Kenya Ports Authority came from behind to defeat Equity Bank 58-45 as they took Game 2 of their Kenya Basketball Federation Playoffs final at the Nyeri Gymnasium. Victory for KPL leveled their series at 1-1 after Equity had won the opening game 53-51 at the same venue in what is setting up to be a superb duel for the Women's Premier League crown. Mombasa will host the closing 3 games of the series. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Okay, so we're looking at traffic hours starting a little bit early this Monday morning. It's already jam-packed on Jogo Road going out into the city. We're seeing the same thing happening on Gong Road here and there, crawling its way towards Community and then out towards Uhuru Highway. Uhuru Highway traffic then goes out all the way towards Westlands. And speaking of Westlands, Ring Road Westlands is jam-packed bumper to bumper in both directions. Coming off of Waiyaki Way as well, we'll see some traffic. Kiambu Road now is mimicking the Thika Superhighway. Quite a lot of traffic that's going all the way far back as Coffee Gardens. Okay, Thika Superhighway, as we had spoken about, has fully embraced Monday morning traffic. Omo is not a joke at all. Going well into Kiambu County, traffic coming off that Thika Superhighway today. So plan in advance. If you're on Thika Road this morning, you're going to get into town a little bit later if you've not left already. Let's keep an eye on things, guys. Talk to us this morning on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
7 after 7
This is The Situation Room.
February 2022. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. If you're just joining us, asante sana for keeping it locked. Vincent Soy, good morning, tuned in from Eldoret. Good morning to you. City, today's North African proverb.
If you are a peg, endure the knocking. If you are a mallet, strike.
Kila mtu afanya kazi yake.
Actually, you have put it so very well. Let everyone there.
If you're a peg, reminds me of basket mouth. There's 2 things involved. A long-running, winded joke that he tells. In life, that there's 2 things involved. You're either a man or a woman. If you're a woman, you're safe. If you're a man, there's 2 things involved. It goes on. You're either in the military or a civilian. If you're a civilian, you're safe. If you're a military, there's 2 things involved.
Military.
You're either out at war or in the barracks. If you're in the barracks, you're safe. If you're out at war, there's 2 things involved.
You know, I found that joke whenever I found it hilarious. Completely hilarious.
Very, very. So tell us this story again. Now start this
What are
story
the
from
hallmarks
the very top.
of the 1990s? And something that happened right across this country. The government had a policy right from the time we got our independence, and even prior to that, of allocating land to its citizens. The understanding was that if it was government land and it was simply, as we say, sitting there, it would be allocated to people who would develop it. But then there was also a little problem of people who had been displaced because of the colonial era and the need for colonialists to acquire land that they considered to be, should we say, of great economic use. So as a result of this, the government had policies of resettling people. Some were resettled because the areas they came from had been flooded. Others were resettled because they had actually been forcibly removed from the lands that had belonged to them. Others were resettled because the government had land, and the land, as I say, was simply sitting there. So people got land. Now, it was something that was considered normal. The understanding was that if you were allocated land, you would utilize it. It wouldn't just sit there. Okay. Now, alongside this came now a culture that was seen developing during what we call the Moi era. People would be allocated land, as long as it was government land. Tricky thing here, though, government land wasn't particularly indicated as to what was on that land. For instance, many government schools, if not all, were on government land. Schools didn't have individual titles. Parastatals who owned land were on government land. There were no specific titles for parastatals. Even military land was government land. There was no specific title for the military. Now, as a result of it, there were very many mischievous, by the way, just in case I forget, even public land that was demarcated specifically for recreation, like parks and so forth. Again, government land, unless it was specific, like say Jivanji, which really isn't a government land, people sought ways of either getting parcels of this land carved out for them so that they could own it. Okay. Now, with time, it was realized that it was best that government entities have their own titles. Now, Kenya Meat Commission is one of these entities that had titles. Title, Kenya Meat Commission. And like many entities, at some point when they want to expand or do things that are beyond the capacity of the income they have, they get loans. Kenya Meat Commission had 13 titles. 1-3. 1-3. National Bank, the bank that was predominantly owned by the government and could make it possible for them to receive the monies, gave them the monies. Now, by 2007, you're talking about very many from 1984. By 2007, the loans they had taken had all been paid. Auditor General doing her work in 2020. Looks, finds 3 titles cannot be allocated. Sorry, located. Allocated is when you're given. Located is when you look for it and find it. Yes.
So now they cannot be found.
There's this little detail. So, and they're specific, okay? There is one piece of land, Kitengela is in Kajiado, for those who didn't know. Just so that, for
clarity's
sake, yes. That one couldn't be traced. There's another in Kitisuru. I know you laugh, but there's land in Kitisuru. Couldn't be traced.
How many acres?
This Kitisuru land for KMC is very interesting.
This story is not going to be complete if I do not go step by step.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Please don't be annoyed. No vex.
No, it's not vex. I'm just saying I can actually go there and
No. Follow your steps.
Right. Thank you very much. And then there was one in Movoko. All that the Auditor General is saying they could not be traced. Now, to get back to the details that you sought, okay, the parcels of land are as follows. LR, as in land registration, okay, number 1/258 Shimanzi, that one, Mombasa. LR, please listen carefully, 42/40 Riverside Drive, Nairobi. LR, Kitisuru, Nairobi. 17/68. This one, specifically, they say was sold in April the 2nd, 2008. This is the one you're asking about, isn't it?
Where?
When you say parcel of land, it was one parcel. Some people chopped it up. So, first portion, April 2nd, 2008. Second, April 1st, 2010.
Sold.
Yeah, they were sold. I'm moving backwards.
Right.
And then the first one, the first bit that was sold in Kizu was October 29th, 1999.
What?
When you sell something, you leave a trail. You can't actually sell and have a transfer without there being a trace. They even tell you the amount of money it was sold for. The parcel in Mombasa was sold at 12 million shillings, while the one in Riverside was sold for 400,000 shillings. The one you asked about, the Kitisuru parcel, was sold for 18.3 million shillings.
Where? So this one is not a missing title. This one for Kitisuru is not missing. We can trace.
It's missing in that it ought to have been just parcel of land belonging to Kenya Meat Commission, but since it was
or at least some documentation showing that the board has approved the sale of this piece of land.
That one they've looked for, and this is what the Auditor General says. No documentary evidence was provided to confirm the appropriate approvals by the National Treasury and the apparent ministries were granted for these sales.
Yes. Okay. At least that one we can see it was sold. These other ones. Mavoko, Shimanzi, Kitengela, Riverside.
Not sure. There's an issue that this article shows with clarity, and that is there's a lot that is unclear about these properties that are owned.
Yes.
So you have snippets of information. These ones were sold, we have evidence.
Yes.
These ones, we can't really find their titles, but we're not really sure what it is that the outcome of that absence. But the ones that we know were sold are these ones.
And this is just one story of government entities, like you said.
This is one story. That's why I gave the background of government land and what government land actually is and or was. Now, you've heard, we've had cases in the papers where the military is actually fighting off land grabbers.
Yes.
People who want their land, or people who say they own the land, and they say, I have the ownership of this title. And they say, but you can't have the ownership of this title.
Yes.
This has been military land from God knows when.
From wherever.
Yeah, so you know this title of yours. Being military, you find people pause and go slow. But it isn't the only one. One of the things that I haven't documented, but I have seen repeatedly, is the number of times over the years that cases have been brought to court by government entities, parastatals, claiming land which they say is theirs, but was taken over by certain individuals.
Forest land.
Oh, that one.
Big ticket item there.
ADC land. Agricultural Development Corporation.
Yes.
Huge swathes of land. There was one, the issue there in Laikipia.
It is.
There's some ADC land in Laikipia, which was in the news just the other day. Who owns this piece of land?
My friend, that one story has been going on for something like around 5-6 decades. Yes. Then there is land that was supposedly owned by some colonial entity, was bought by the groups who had put money together, and somehow, somewhere along the line, one or two individuals ended up owning that land, and they didn't get the land that was due to them.
Solio Ranch.
Solio Ranch. You know, if there's one thing that is a thorny issue and with good reason in this country, it's land. Because if you follow some of these stories, it is clear that the people who have received the short end of the stick were people who deservedly ought to have owned this land. And that trend, when we were fewer in the country and fewer people had the knowledge, it was easy to pull such stunts and supposedly think you could get away with it. But in this day and age, I now understand why it is Farida Karone and her ministry were having such a difficult time when they were trying to bring sanity into this ministry. Because if you're talking about ills that were committed, that occurred as far back as 5 to 6 decades ago, and right now you're saying, okay, let's sort this thing out. People who knew what they did know what they did. And if there's one thing they will not want, it's for this thing to see the light of day, because it will expose whatever was done with ease.
Absolutely.
You know, when you get land, this is the thing. The trail is clear. It doesn't matter how many times it is sold. You'll go back to who owned it originally.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what you do. You can't erase that. And if it goes back to government, you're going to have a very difficult time. It's not that you can't own government land. You can. You can. But there's a process that has to be followed for you to actually have the authority to buy it.
And what would appear to be the situation here, or assumed, is that those processes then were not followed, and that something untoward was done in order to have now this land title then move in terms of ownership. And I think that's the question here that's being asked. How exactly did this happen, and where did this go to? Because there must be a paper trail, CT. I mean, if the titles are not available, Where did they go?
Do you remember? These ones were title deeds that were actually placed with the bank because the bank gave them money.
Right.
Physical documents.
So bank has them, and these pieces of land have been sold.
The three that we're talking about, the physical evidence is not there.
Yeah.
Three, they can't be found. Do you remember, not too long ago, there was something that lasted for quite a while in the papers regarding Ngong Forest. Now, Ngong Forest and the estates that it covered, it went to Langata, the estate that is owned by Kenya Medical Association, others, an entire region. Now, if you look at the history of Ngong Forest, you need to start with the Met Station. As you're going towards Kawangware, that one, the huge roundabout.
Yes.
On your left, forest begins there.
Yeah.
As you continue up to the school, forest. But you will find that a specific order was given by the colonial government in 1949 at that point in time to annex that portion of land, which is I think almost 200 acres, to make a school. But it was forest. Now, you go on and you ask, okay, was it gazetted? Was there change of user? Because there's a process. You change its forest, you want to change the user to this. And there are a whole raft of approvals that must be there. When such details are then followed with the mind of posterity in mind, that's where now the errors that were made, the deliberate errors, come to the fore. And this is a process that will be fought. And if you talk about government land, it's all over the country.
It's everywhere. All these different institutions with their different pieces of land.
All over the country.
All over the country, especially those in agriculture.
All over the country.
Kari, ADC.
What about the development authorities?
Yes.
They had huge tracts of land. And you'll find a lot of mischief also took place. Somebody who was the CEO then somehow ended up owning God knows how many hundred acres, which were never his property.
Never gazetted, never done anything, but
somehow they own the land.
Somehow you ended up with some title deed and then you've sold off that land.
Yes, exactly.
If you're a fifth generation owner of this piece of land, all right, because you're the one who bears the brunt of it, what should happen?
I can only
look. Here you are going to buy a piece of land. You check, you see that this title deed is actually legit. You go to lands ministry, you find officials in the lands ministry, and they tell you, yes, indeed, this title deed that has been presented to you is legit. You go ahead and transact. You pay stamp duty. The government accepts stamp duty. And then you sell off the land as well. The new buyer also pays stamp duty.
Sure.
And the whole process. So now you are, say, third or fourth generation owner of a piece of land here. And then the government comes and tells you, this land is ours. Huh?
Actually not yours.
This land, we've seen it in Mavoko here in Syokimau with Kenya Airports Authority. Kenya Airports Authority a couple of years ago went and demolished
houses of
people's
people
houses.
who had titles and
people
built
were
their
saying,
homes. Yeah.
I have a title deed. They tell you, no. There's nothing that shows that this title deed of ours has ever been transferred.
And never does it go back, because I remember the cases for Syokimau, never does it go back to the entity or the individuals who sold this land to these now then secondary settlers.
Yep.
It never goes back. Nobody's ever asking, hold on a minute, who sold you this land in the first place? Show me the details of the transaction. It never was the case. At the end of the day, here you are, title in your hand, which is useless, and the disheveled property goes back to government, and then you go back and start from scratch. Nobody's asking the question about who sold this land to you, what process did you follow, nothing. Folks took the rubble from their homes and went to start again.
There is a common law principle, let the buyer beware. Caveat emptor. Okay? When the coming in of the new government under President Kibaki in 2002, one of the things that they did was they tried to rationalize these very same things we're talking about. And people who suffered were people who had been sold land which were either on road reserves or land which, very simply, shouldn't have had any buildings on.
Yes.
Whether you took a loan, you and the bank will talk, but your building is gone.
Yes.
Remember, there were some buildings that were cut in half.
Yeah.
Meaning one half was correctly in, the other half was...
The other half can stay.
Yes. Buyer, beware.
But beware of what, City? You see, if you've done due diligence, if the corruption is happening at the Ministry of Lands, the custodian of the title deed, right? You have gone there, you have used your legal counsel, you've done the search, and the search has produced results stamped by an officer of the Lands Ministry.
What more of a question must you ask?
If there's a caveat emptor, for example, there's a caveat emptor that has been placed by the East African Portland Cement, right? They've said this particular piece of land belongs to EAPCC.
Prohibited
Now,
for
if
sale.
anybody comes and tries to sell you this piece of land, please beware. Now, you see, EAPCC can say, we warned people. We said, do not buy this piece of land. It belongs to us. Now, you can argue that the buyer who had not done some due diligence and found out that this is EAPCC land, but in others.
I mean, look, if you were buying a piece of land in somebody's office, right? I go to Eric's office, we sit down, we're transacting. Then I do the due diligence and I take that documentation to the ministry and I find out, hold on a minute, can we do our checks on this and find out if I can go ahead and do this? But a lot of these folks, for example, for who we're talking about caveat emptor and all of this, we're sitting in the ministry, as in they got this directly from ministry. So whom do you ask the question to, if not the Ministry of Lands? Who do you go further to and say, okay, I want to investigate some more? And you're getting it from the ministry. Who are you supposed to go to after that?
You see, it isn't so much that I think the full burden of what you buy must fall on the buyer. That's not it, really. What I'm saying is this. If you want to buy a piece of land and you do due diligence, actually, unfortunately, with our laws, the onus is on you. That's really all I'm saying. It is on you. Even if you're the fifth buyer of the same property and you're going to get the fifth title deed, it's still on you. That's the unfortunate thing. So the question you're asking is, so what should one do? I honestly don't know.
Like in the cases that have been happening in Nairobi, okay? So a property, a house that is on leasehold from the city for a number of years. Those number of years have expired. And the people who occupy this, because it's like second or third generation, have not really been tracking when. Do you know, for example, if you have a title deed, when does it's 99 years? When do those 99 years
may have expired?
Yes.
And you're thinking that the 99 years starts when
I was born here. There's nothing
no.
about 99 years expiring. Cool, but it's not freehold. It's leasehold.
It's leasehold.
Nairobi people have been getting evicted, and you've seen people just being evicted because lease expired, you did not come to renew, somebody somewhere in City Hall has moved the ownership of the house to somebody else.
Quickly.
So the somebody else comes to take over the house. And it's been happening. In fact, I've just been reminded here of the former governor of Nairobi, Mike Sonko. Yeah, he posted something on his social media talking about these cases of land grabbing schemes happening at Eastleigh Section 3, where houses belonging to Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company and the Pumwani health workers were demolished at midnight and the rightful tenants evicted like stray dogs. A year later, land grabbers have begun constructing private properties on this particular piece of land. We see this very many times. Who do you go to? Now, if there's a piece of land that you have bought and you've gone through the title deed and you found legit. Now,
you see,
surely, no.
Eric, you bring in a valid point, and this is where I think the MCRs come in. You know why? You represent people who live in areas where the land is on leasehold.
Yes.
One of the duties that they can actually do is help these voters of theirs understand the ownership status of the properties that they have. Because they're the same people who can bring these matters before an assembly and in so doing influence the county government to ensure that these voters of theirs are not unduly, do not unduly suffer as a result of ignorance on their part. Because the truth of the matter is this. Do you really honestly think most people who own land know whether it is on leasehold, whether it is freehold.
Do we understand those
Nobody
things?
is bothering that little devil.
Whether it's just simply on hold.
You don't know. You have land, you have
Shamba
the title,
ni
end of
shamba.
story. Yeah.
Na equal title.
Wisha.
That's it.
Yep.
Done.
Others don't even know about change of user.
What are you talking about?
So you've bought a piece of land, it's a 50 by 100 or whatever, somewhere deep. You think,
It's
this
mine.
one is mine. So
That's
I'm
it.
going to put up apartments here.
Yeah.
But even as I'm saying this, Eric,
This is agricultural land.
Yes. So yeah,
People are farming.
but people who are farming need to also live in houses. Yeah, we get it.
But wait,
That's
come
how
on.
it works.
Can you really farm on a 50 by 100 even if it was you? What do you think I bought this land for? You thought I was buying this land to put up a tomato farm?
And you're told we understand.
Yeah, but
the law, we understand fully. In fact, it's a good thing you're doing, but the law, before you do
Mahali ni
this,
yangu.
by the time you're putting up those many-storied houses, you go through planning and what have you.
Yeah.
That thing ought to be flagged at that point, and you're told, we can't continue with this.
Yeah.
Because this piece of land of yours is actually agricultural land. Or this one, sorry, it's government land that a sewage plant should have been put here.
Yeah.
So you can't put up these flats, but you're not told.
It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a situation room. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Una post story ati ni real news. Mimi sikuamini mpaka nione sasa hizo views. Una text online to me tunanifeel. Staki jokes ama mimi nitakureport for real.
Wazazi watoina mayouth wetu, usidanganywe, erebuka na ujibambe na burudani safe na masomo mtandaoni.
For information, visit cop.ke-cirt.go.ke/ report incidents on ke-cirt.go.ke or call 0703 042 700. The Communications Authority of Kenya. Mawasiliano kwetu, nguvu kwako.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
The sun is coming out in Nairobi at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16. At 15, Nakuru is sunny. 27 will be the high and lows of 15. We're looking at lows of 12 in a sunny Nyeri. Highs of 28. 23 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 13. It'll come down to lows of 11. It's sunny at 25 in Mombasa, highs of 33. And we'll see highs of 32 in a sunny Malindi, currently at 26. Partly sunny at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 26 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, we'll see 16. Currently, highs of 25 and lows of 15. It's raining in Kampala at 19, highs of 26, and mostly sunny conditions at 28 in Dar es Salaam. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 27. Mostly clear at 26 in Lagos. Highs of 34 and lows of 25. While it's mostly clear in Kinshasa at 24, we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 23. Joburg, it's sunny at 15. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 15.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There is no Kikuyu pothole, low lack of water,
Right.
or Kamba, lack of traffic.
Yeah.
There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Bumper to bumper in a lot of parts in the city. We're looking at Raila Odinga Way heading towards Ngong Road and then seeping out towards Community. That is already looking really messy this morning. Uhuru Highway all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout out towards Westlands. That's doing its own thing today. And the western part of the city quite packed. Okay. What it looks like as what is going on the Thika Superhighway today combined with Kiambu Road is an absolute mess. And it's going to need a lot of patience to get out of this one today. We're going past USIU, past Zimmerman, or connecting with Clay Works, and there's a lot of traffic. And unfortunately, in most parts, it's bumper to bumper. Talk less of what's joining from Outer Ring today. And that's coming off from the eastern side of the city. We're looking at it feeding off all the way from Cabanas towards North Airport Road and then going up on that road towards Outer Ring. So, traffic hour started early this morning and it looks like it's going to need a lot of patience today. And it looks like it will be a manic Monday, but keep your wits about, guys. We'll get out of it without too much of an issue. Let's just know what's going on with you. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
That's been shared with the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, the Honorable Farida Karone, to come back. And when she comes back, let's talk about all these issues of land ownership, and then we can also bring in land conveyancing expert. When you're buying land, so what do you look out for?
Surely. How is the buyer protected?
Yes.
Because most people assume that land is a simple transaction. I have money, I wish to buy, I pay, I get my land.
And then when someone tells you with ready title, you're like, that's the one I want to go for. Others tell you, right, so titles, the subdivision is going to happen soon, so just buy. You have an allotment letter. Where?
My friend,
where?
The tales of woe that one hears about around land in this country.
Yes.
There are many and they are tragic.
Yes.
Yes.
Very many.
Anyway, the invitation stands.
Let's go international right now, shall we? And news coming out of France is that a day of last-minute diplomacy by French President Emmanuel Macron on Sunday appeared to give some new hope for a peaceful resolution over Ukraine, as White House officials said President Biden would be willing to consider direct talks with his Russian counterpart as long as Russia does not invade Ukraine. Remember, White House officials said a possible summit between Biden and President Vladimir Putin of Russia would only be held after meetings between the foreign ministers of the two countries, which are tentatively scheduled for later this week. A senior White House official says there are no plans for either the format or timing of a meeting between the two leaders. Another official called it all completely notional and said that all evidence suggests Russia still intends to invade Ukraine in the coming days. The same thing that Biden said. Biden said they are 100% convinced that Vladimir Putin wants to invade Ukraine. Not in coming weeks, in fact, in coming days. This is like the second or third time that America has said, we are sure that Russia is about to invade Ukraine in coming days. It was supposed to have been some 2 Wednesdays ago.
Yep.
Then some last Wednesday. Now we're waiting for the next one. This Wednesday, probably, if these talks don't take place. What's happening in Ukraine?
Well, all right. So let's look. I mean, I'm going to go to that in just a second, but there's a minute-by-minute breakdown of what happened in Paris for this conversation then between the US. So 2:20 a.m. Paris time, Putin, Biden agree in principle to Ukraine summit, right? Joe Biden and his Russian counterpart have accepted an principle to hold a summit in principle. Many say that this summit probably will not happen. They say it will only happen if Moscow does not invade Ukraine, the French presidency announced then early this morning. It was been proposed, of course, as you've said, and it will be expanded to relevant stakeholders to discuss security and strategic stability in Europe. A statement from the Elysee said, adding that preparations could start between Russia and the US on Thursday. 6 minutes 12 minutes before that, satellite images show new Russian troop buildup. Satellite images show new deployments of Russian troops and military equipment near the Ukrainian border, according to a U.S. company. The pictures showed multiple new field deployments of armored equipment and troops departing from existing military sites into forests and fields approximately 9 to 19 miles from Russia's border with the Ukraine. The new photos taken Sunday appear to show vehicle tracks cutting through snow-covered fields that were surrounded by woodland and bordered roads with several buildings also visible. Analyses of these photos, plus others taken a week ago, indicate troop and equipment movement near 3 localities in southwestern Russia. And according to another statement, one of the combat units and support equipment at Soloti have departed, and extensive vehicle tracks and some convoys of armored equipment are seen through the area. Right? Before that, Macron proposes a Putin-Biden summit accepted by both parties. And before that, Putin and Macron talk for the second time in one day. Just before that, intel shows Russia gives orders to attack the Ukraine. And these are U.S. reports, not necessarily coming from anybody else. Right? U.S. intelligence provided Biden with confidence to make the assertion came from an order given to Russian subordinates to proceed with a full-scale attack, according to several people familiar with the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the matter's sensitivity. Other signs that might indicate an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine have not yet been observed, apart from what the American report had said. Let's look at what happened the night before. Explosion in Donetsk. A blast was heard early Monday morning at the center of Donetsk, which is held by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine. And the origin of the blast was unclear. Ukrainian independence poses a threat to Russia, which is at the belly of this problem. Of course, this is reported by France 25. And, you know...
how does it present a threat?
The independence of Ukraine?
So, Ukraine borders Russia.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Okay. As does Belarus, as Dukina, Georgia, and the others.
Yes.
Ukraine is right there at the tip of the entrance to the Black Sea.
Yes.
So, a Ukraine that is sort of working against Russia can also block Russia's access to this particular Black Sea.
Is it the only country that actually has access to the Black Sea? No.
In this particular case, the ones that is directly is Ukraine and Georgia and Russia.
Yes.
Okay. Now, of course, the others, Kenya, Romania, further down.
They're much further down.
But directly next to it, that one. Here's the thing. This is not a new issue. The Ukraine, Georgia, Russia issue is not new. At the breaking up of the USSR, those countries that now started becoming independent and declaring their independence, Ukraine was not among them initially. It had some ties with Russia. Belarus has not been talking about, joining Europe and all. They have close ties with Russia. NATO, and when you hear NATO, you're talking about military, has been having moves towards Ukraine and saying, okay, if you join the EU, why then you also now become part of NATO, then you get support.
To which Ukraine has blatantly refused.
And Ukraine basically says, yeah, we join EU.
But we're not joining NATO.
But we are not joining NATO for now. But NATO has been saying, yeah, we will definitely attack. If you are sitting there as Russia, and you see the European countries and their military might called NATO are moving closer and closer next door, would you be sitting there comfortably saying, it's a free world. Let everybody do what everybody wants to do.
Why don't they join NATO?
Who? Russia?
Yes. or why don't they join EU? I mean, what's stopping them from joining the EU?
The EU is stopping them from joining the EU.
You see, one can understand it from a colonialist perspective. From 1922, you've had control of all these countries, and you're the one who's more or less decided what happens. Okay, they get their independence, But part of the independence, you see, part of that occupation meant that there were large populations of people who were predominantly Russians who were in these countries. But Russia had the final say in what happens. And many of these countries didn't even have the military might because Russia provided them with the sort of security that they needed. Now, independence, so long as you're bigger, not necessarily the biggest trading partner, it's still Russia, it's essentially independence by name. You join the EU, now you're moving that dependence from Russia to somebody else. You join NATO, it can be seen as a threat because essentially you're saying that your sphere of influence is now being taken over. From Russia's point of view, one understands clearly why it is that they could be protesting. Because they're saying, but these are countries that we've had a sphere of influence over. But essentially you're saying, you guys, listen, we are not going to allow you to do what you think you want to do. You have freedom up to this point. Beyond that point, we are going to have a very serious talk about it.
You know, even beyond just the sphere of influence, it's looking at the other side as well. If these countries like Ukraine and the other side, we just want to express our independence, they've been independent since the breakaway of the USSR. They've been independent. But if they were just saying that and saying, independence, we can trade with whoever we want, it's fine. But you start having those close associations with the EU and then what the EU is saying, economic sanctions against Russia, we have seen them. And then now there's the issue of NATO and the NATO advancement closer and closer towards the Russian border. That is an existential threat. And in fact, Putin has actually directly called it that.
Yes, it is. But
he has written that and said, he has indicated that he sees NATO's expansion as an existential threat and the prospect of Ukraine joining the Western military alliance is a hostile act. In interviews and speeches, he has emphasized his view that Ukraine is part of Russia culturally, linguistically, politically. While some of the mostly Russian-speaking population in Ukraine's east feel the same, a more nationalist Ukrainian-speaking population in the West has historically supported greater integration with Europe. However, in 2021, Putin penned an article where he underlined their shared history, describing Russian and Ukrainians as one people. And he says, now, when we have NATO coming closer and closer, because NATO has been pushing closer and closer, looking at the former Balkan states, and they've also joined NATO, they're under the protection of NATO. Russia sits back and sees, this is military force coming closer and closer to us. What does that mean? That we are boxed in.
No, but that isn't the only conversation. Russia's conversation has to point to what they consider to be the rational perspective of looking at it. This same Ukraine, as you say, in the east, there have been Russian-speaking Ukrainians who've been at war with the national government of Ukraine for the longest time, and Russia has supported it.
Yeah.
There are Russian-controlled regions in the northeast of Ukraine.
Yes.
Today.
Yes. So, essentially, in my mind, this is a colonialist refusing to let go. To put it very simply.
I see it different.
Please.
And I see, that's why I started by saying, if the West, the EU, was not making any sort of advancements towards Ukraine, and that Ukraine was basically doing all these things independent of any external force or support, then you could say that this is just a guy who's refusing to let go. But when Russia is looking and seeing, is not seeing Ukraine, it is seeing America and the West, and what America and the West are doing in terms of influence, coming closer to them. Russia looks at it and sees.
So where does the Ukrainian ability to make a decision for themselves come in?
This is what is being questioned here.
That's the question.
This is the thing.
Why is Ukraine not the one talking?
Yeah. Would Ukraine make the decisions that it has in the last 8 years, literally, on its own, in terms of any kind of military decision, in any kind of community decision, joining the EU, joining NATO, on its own, if it were not for the influence that is seen that is coming from the EU as well as the US, then that would be different.
But don't you see the argument follows the same? Would they make the same decision if Russia wasn't doing exactly the same thing that they say the EU and NATO are doing? I mean, which side weighs heavier? Because it's the same argument for both sides.
Which side weighs heavier?
No, I'm
The one
simply
closer.
saying Russia have the argument, and the argument isn't any different from the argument that is being made against the incursion, as they see it, of the EU and NATO.
In my mind, the one closer. The Russian side carries more weight.
How?
Because it can see a direct threat.
No, the Ukrainian, in my mind, the Ukrainian nation's view is what carries weight. They're independent. They decide. Because they're geographically next to Russia. Look, the history of these states that were part of Russia and the wars that are going on, are still going on today. Whether it's Chechnya, whether it's where. What is it about? It's influence. People feeling we're not really as free as we want to be. We're supposed to be free, and this country still wants to tell us what to do. Now, I am saying Ukraine has a decision to decide. They have the ability and the decision-making process to determine who they want to influence them.
Well,
That's really what I'm saying.
If you're looking at what's happening now, essentially, I think really that there is the threat that Russia feels. Look at it this way. The threat that Russia feels, what the EU and the US essentially would be gaining control in a manner that they had control as the USSR before the balkanization of this part of Europe, right? So this is an area over which they had control. And huge control.
And they want to continue having
and so
control
now
over.
here you are with the advancement of NATO, with the advancement of the EU, with the advancement of what it would be US theory and belief. And they're saying, hold on a minute. This is where we were some 20 odd years ago. And now somebody's coming in and trying to take control in a manner, take the very little that we have left. We're not going to take it lying down.
And why? Why, just like we're saying historically, why are those two looking at that kind of influence? Why is it so important that Russia controls some influence, has some influence over these lands? And why is it so important to the US and the West that Russia does not have influence over these lands?
It is that age-old power struggle between the so-called powerful nations of the world. For instance, Mongolia was part of USSR. But people forget that Russia took Mongolia from China. You see, these games go on all the time. Do you know, I didn't even know when we had the war on the Falklands, remember? I didn't even know that Britain owned a piece of land in Argentina. I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. And I was thinking, hey.
What is it?
I mean, but this...
Why is Thatcher so...
Yeah, I mean, the UK is really far away. And this land is literally next to... Now, there are treaties and there are legal understandings that I think nations have with ownership. It's the same understanding that we saw in 1994 with Hong Kong. Okay? You have this land for X number. When that date arrives, it reverts back. It was honored, and we can see what's happening. In fact, Hong Kong, for me, epitomizes what we're seeing here with greater clarity. Those who have lived, Hong Kongians, if I may call them that, had enjoyed a certain freedom as they considered it. China believes, yes, the People's Republic. Freedom is best when it's controlled by us.
That's how it can be freedom.
How
else?
I mean, we are offering it to you.
We are guaranteeing you
freedom. Guaranteeing you freedom. Yes.
Many would argue that what's currently going on is just an extension of what happened until 1991 during the Cold War. That look, here we are saying that it was the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. You gather up as much as you can, we gather up as much as we can. Although we don't officially declare war on one another, we're not really, in talking terms. Many would say that this was an extension of the same, that it never really did end. So here you are still trying to continue with your political, economic proliferation. And we're saying, okay, guys, we just have a little bit left. Leave us alone with that. And that's where Russia's coming from.
But
the Western Bloc, which many would say, okay, kind of dissipated after World War II, didn't really. Because now you have the EU, you have NATO, and you have everything else that comes with those continental blocks are coming out and saying, well, you know what? We never really did put that thing down. We really still want to be able to control as much as we can. And here's another opportunity for us to do so with Ukraine.
And we want to be close to you so that we just one day wake up and we feel like we are really not happy with you. We can just press a button.
We're just over the fence.
Just press a button and something lands on your lands.
We're just close enough to feel the breath when you take a sneeze.
Look at what happened
really far away.
In the 60s. When Fidel Castro and Cuba and the revolutionaries started facing east with Russia. And there was this whole move of either Russia trying to set up a military base near Cuba. What happened?
America caught a cold. Somebody sneezed here in Cuba and America started.
There was a full blockade. Can you imagine?
It was a full crisis, actually.
If this thing had
because
not
Cuba
happened,
was next door.
just there. If this thing hadn't happened, that some Russian leader sat somewhere and took too much vodka and decided to sell off a bit of a piece of land to America many years ago. If, what's that place called where Palin comes from?
Palin comes from Alaska.
Alaska. If Alaska was still in Russia today, because it was Russian territory, would America just be sitting there like,
it's okay?
You know something, huh? If you look at this matter and bring it closer home, look at some of the issues that we're having with our neighbor Ethiopia. Okay?
Yeah.
Power struggles take very many forms. But one of the things that is consistent and constant with power, people do not like to give it up.
No.
When they have it, they will do you call it any and every crazy thing to ensure that they have it. It's not something that people give up easily. No. So long as America and Russia want to extend their spheres of influence, remember China is very quiet about this whole thing. Huh?
It's going to be Ukraine today. It'll be another country tomorrow. It'll be for the next, however long period of time, and then there'll be somebody else to quibble over.
But the reason why these things continue the way they do, at the heart of it, there's something very interesting. You wanting to ensure that the people who supposedly elect you, because USSR, or rather Russia, is a democratic country, and they have elections. You want to continue building up that public support. And how do you build it up? By tuning into the people's consciousness about nationalism. If these people are taking something that is ours, if I belong to the country that's dominating everyone, I'm happy to be in the country that dominates. Now, all you need is to explain that, something, this thing that we've enjoyed, which is actually ours and we've helped build, these people are coming to invade it and take it away. I'm certain if you were to go to Russia, you'd find Putin has 150% support. People feel this guy, he's doing the right thing. After all, this is our territory anyway. But again, I have to bring it back to this simple discussion. Ukraine and the Ukrainians, which direction do they want to go? And are they being allowed? And
must they go a certain direction? Can they just stay where they are?
Yes, that is a direction.
Even staying where they are is also something. They must not be forced to choose a side.
No.
Because this is exactly what's happening in this particular case.
I agree.
They're being
with
asked
you, Eric.
to choose a side.
They don't need to choose a side. They need to decide what they want to do.
As a sovereign state.
Yes, because they're being treated as though the sovereignty is pegged to either this or that.
Or that we must hold your hand. You come here, little country who doesn't really quite understand what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Let's hold your hand as the Americans, or let's hold your hands as a Russian. But how about you say, look here, hey, sovereign state here, hello, we can make the decision.
Those that decided to stay the way they want to stay, like Belarus, they have a despot leader. They have a strong man who is only answers to Russia.
Same story with Hungary. Yes. You see, there's some of these narratives are Western narratives. Okay.
Yep.
The West has a view, and they decide this is how they want to look at it. But I'm bringing back the question: the people who live in the country, what are their views about the situation that they have at hand?
Yep.
It's
It
interesting.
will be very difficult right now to find out what their views are.
You actually can't, because the influences of both sides of the divide
have infiltrated the society and the system. Anyway, I think it's about time the rest of the world calls out these two, West and Russia, and tell them, look, just stop it.
Grow up, the two of you.
Stop it. Just stop it. A whole president saying, we are convinced that Russia is going to invade. Yeah, we are going to meet with Putin, but only if Russia does not invade. See, he has not invaded now, so why can't you meet today? Anyway, let's talk about saving our children. Solicitation of a minor, what does that mean?
Solicitation of a minor. Criminals online may try to befriend unsuspecting children in hopes of luring them so that they may engage in criminal activity with them. And this spans a plethora of things, so many things that young children can get involved in just because somebody older than them, a little bit more Wiley can get them to be involved in, reminding you that CA is dedicated to helping us work together for better internet. It's launched Cyber Soldiers, a brand new interactive game aimed at teaching children how to recognize threats. How do you know that it's somebody who may not have your best intentions talking to you over the internet? What can you do? What are some of the safety tips? And we'll talk about those as we go through through the show today. Also want to hear what your experiences are. Remember, if you have any concerns about your online safety and that of your child, visit www.ca.go.ke/child online protection. This conversation is made possible by the Communications Authority of Kenya, making sure that children are safe on the internet, regardless.
Indeed. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we have a guest in the studio. This is Professor Mutua. He's the chairman of the board, one of the founders of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. He is also a law professor, and presently he's been very, very vocal in support of Raila Odinga's presidency. The art of political persuasion is what we want to discuss with him in the next hour. Also, remember, at 9 o'clock, we have Moses Kuria, the MP for Gatundu South, who'll be joining us. We want him to tell us about those 130 plus days that he was not able to walk. What was happening and what happened to him? Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Newsround Dennis Assato. The working island says it is the best place to keep the country with shipping results. Speaking of Mombasa County, the principal said they have what it takes to fight corruption and bring the much-needed economic transformation. The Lands believes it has the answers to the problems facing the country. Kalonzo Musyoka, Gideon Moi and Martha Karua urged residents of Mombasa not to overlook their competence going into the August general elections. The leader said the alliance will focus on industrialization and manufacturing so as to create more jobs. Now, the completion of the competency-based curriculum classrooms across the country is on course, with over 2,000 classrooms completed and 350 already commissioned by the Education Ministry officials. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha said the total completion rate of the 6,497 classrooms was at 70%, with the contractors put on notice to ensure they beat the March 7th deadline. The CS, who spoke while commissioning 2 CBC classrooms at Mangu High School, said Central and Nairobi counties lagged behind as Garissa, Mandera and Wajir took the lead in completion rates at 99%, 94% and 90% respectively. He said education officials will campaign counties that are recording slow progress to ensure they meet the deadlines. The Kenya Union of Clinical Officers has demanded the government through the Ministry of Interior provide 24-hour security to all essential service providers in non-polarized areas. In addition, the union is also demanding that the county government of Mandera inform the public of the status of one of the members they say was abducted by Al-Shabaab operatives and steps taken to prevent similar incidences. And police in Nakuru County have launched a manhunt for a man who escaped after battering his wife to death in Ngendareal village, Angata location. Charles Langat is said to have been involved in a domestic brawl with his 23-year-old wife, identified as Irene Chebet, injuring her head, back, hands and left leg using what is presumed to be a sharp object. According to a police report filed by the deceased brother, Chebet was thereafter rushed to a nearby health center but unfortunately succumbed while undergoing treatment. Nakuru County has launched a sustainable energy access and climate action and energy plan in an effort to combat climate change to ensure access to clean energy months after the governor assented to the Nakuru County Climate Change Bill 2020. Speaking after the launch, Deputy Governor Eric Latiff said that the bill will provide technical assistance and guidance to the city on how to plan effective actions to respond to climate change. According to Latiff, the plan will also help in ensuring effective response, appropriate adaptation and mitigation of climate change effects in the county. And Boda riders in Nyeri County have received a sensitization and upskilling training on safety courtesy of Reach Cape Kenya. The sensitization drive comes in the wake of a steady rise in the number of Boda riders and resultant accidents in the country. According to the 2021 Economic Survey report by the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, the number of newly registered motorcycles increased by 16.2% from 217,425 in 2019 to 252,601 in 2020. Consequently, the number of motorcyclists involved in accidents increased by 58.4% from 2,410 in 2019 to 3,818 in 2020. Motorcyclists had the highest growth in accident casualties among all road users, with increases in those killed, seriously injured and slightly injured recorded at 56.7%, 59.7% and 57% respectively. The United States yearly counter-terrorism training program for African forces began in Ivory Coast at a time of upheaval in which Islamist fighters control large areas, coups are on the rise and French forces are winding down. The training program, known as Flintlock, will bring together more than 400 soldiers from across West Africa to bolster the skills of forces, some of which are under regular attack by armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Those not present include forces from Guinea and two countries worst hit by Islamist violence, Mali and Burkina Faso. Military juntas have snatched power in those three countries since 2020, raising concerns about a return to West Africa's post-colonial reputation as a coup belt. Central to this year's training is coordination between different forces fighting the same enemy. And Britain's 95-year-old Queen Elizabeth II tested positive for COVID-19 a fortnight after marking 70 years on the throne, but aides said her symptoms are mild. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so traffic hour on a Monday morning, and we're still looking at it quite hot and heavy, especially on the Thika Superhighway today, and it's moving really slowly. We have a lot of bumper-to-bumper traffic in different spots coming into the CBD. The Pangani underpass is going to get quite sticky, guys, so just watch out for that. We're also looking at Gong Road, quite some traffic there. Rilo Dinga Way, quite messy this morning. Jogo Road, in and outbound traffic. Landis Road, looking quite sticky as you get towards the Kamkunji roundabout. Okay, Langata Road, that whole construction issue back and forth, I know it's enough to give you a pulsing headache, but if you're stuck there, you're just going to have to wait through it, because unfortunately once you're there, there's no outlets. So what's the remedy? Use the bypasses before you even think about getting on there. Longer route, but you will get away from having to swallow Panadol. Right? Okay, so let's talk about it, see what might be happening in the next half hour or so. Between then, let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter or text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It is 7 minutes after 8.
The only
Good
way
morning.
to start your day.
Thank you very much for choosing Spice FM and also choosing us online. If you are tuned in on YouTube and Facebook, where we are live streaming the show, or if you're tuned in on radio, Spice FM in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri and Malindi. And for those who are joining us now on KTN Home, where we'll be live for the next 1 hour. As we begin the hour, let's begin with the day's proverb by C.T. Muga.
Yes, it's a Moroccan proverb. I promised last week that I'd be moving to the north of Africa. So today and tomorrow, we'll be listening to Moroccan proverbs. And then we'll move on to yet another country in the north. If you are a peg, endure the knocking. If you are a mallet, strike.
If you're a peg, endure the knocking.
Yes.
If you're a mallet, strike.
Mm.
All right.
What kind of a proverb is that? I mean, that sounds strange.
Why do you find it strange?
Because it sounds violent.
It does sound violent.
Yes.
But does it not paint a picture of what a peg is and what a mallet is?
It does.
And does it not also paint a picture of the relationship that the two have?
It does.
Yes.
Accept your station in life.
Actually, no, whatever your station in life is, just do it well.
Is that the meaning of the proverb?
No, it is just one of the many meanings.
Oh, I see.
The whole idea.
I see.
Well, even
how do you interpret it, Prof?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it shrinks the world into two sort of perspectives, both of which end up essentially saying that you simply sit where you are sitting.
Sit in your corner and don't move.
Exactly.
Lanes. Observe lanes.
And see, someone like me doesn't like that.
Actually, it is.
You don't like to color within the lines.
I don't like sitting in lanes. I like crossing them.
But see, that is the beauty of proverbs. If it doesn't provoke just this small discussion we're having,
yes,
it isn't a very good proverb.
Yes.
No. It must raise questions. One must ask, must it be this? And why could it also not be this?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Professor Prof Mutua is joining us in the studio, and we thank you very much for joining us today. Professor Prof Mutua is very many things. Let me just say two. He's the chair of the Kenya Human Rights Commission, one of the founders of the Human Rights Commission, and is also a distinguished law professor. You have taught law in very many countries in the world. Sindio?
I've been blessed.
Those two are good.
I've been blessed.
Now, Prof, how many years have you been chair of Kenya Human Rights Commission?
I don't count. You don't count years. You count quality of service.
I'm going to write that down.
Counting years is a job of bean counters. I don't do that.
That's what happens when people stay on a position for long and they don't want to be questioned.
Not really.
Somebody
not
who's
really.
a
It's like
perennial chairman of an organization.
It's like asking me, how long have I been alive?
It's a leadership position, Prof. I mean,
No, it's not leadership. It's a service position and not leadership. When we founded the commission way back when in the United States with Maina Kiai, Willie Mutunga, Kiraiti Murungi, and Peter Karethi, we were driven by one goal and one goal only, to serve this country. And actually we did it abroad because that organization could not be established in this country because the use of the two words, human and rights, was tantamount to sedition. Yeah. So it's a service position. It is not a leadership position. We're still serving. And we'll continue to serve until this country is free.
Can't it be both?
But it's for others to decide if it's leadership. For me, it's just service.
When you're a forerunner or a trailblazer, whether you like it or not, of necessity, you are a leader.
Well, then you humble me by those words.
Prof, you say you're going to keep doing this until the country is free. So the illusion is that you're going to continue serving until the country is free.
Yes.
So then there's a presumption that the country is not free. Why would you say that?
You see, the country is not free, and if you live here, as I suppose you do,
sometimes.
She's also a citizen of the
oscillates like this.
Yeah. Well, you consider the indicia of all of that. Our people live in penury. I think, for example, over the last, 2 years, because of COVID, I have never received so many entreaties for help than I've received the last 2 years. From relatives, from friends, even from strangers. I mean, my inbox is full of entities for help. That is not a free country, where people cannot make ends meet, where people cannot afford a meal, where people cannot go to hospital and get served. That is not a free country. Now, of course, freedom is a journey. It is not a destination. But there are countries that are freer than others, and ours is less free than others. We are an unfree people. And that's part of why, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is running to free this country.
To free the country.
Yes.
Prof, when you were leaving the country, going on exile in the 80s,
yes,
and then you and the colleagues that you've just mentioned formed the Kenya Human Rights Commission.
Mm.
What vision did you have in mind? When you're talking about a Kenya Human Rights Commission, obviously at that point you are thinking human rights, Kenya are not in the same sentence and we need to bring them together.
Yes.
What vision did you have for the country at that point?
Life is about possibilities. And it's about dreaming. It's about hope. It's about trying to create a better tomorrow. As a young man, I grew up initially in Kitui with, sort of sojourns, if you will, or forays into Nairobi. And I just remember just how difficult it was for our people. I remember one day in Kitui, for example, it was about 7 o'clock at night, or in the early evening, let me say. And I was in Kitui town, which is, I live, my ancestral home is around there. Mm-hmm. And I was just, prowling around with my friends at 7 o'clock in the town. And we were arrested by the police. And they put us in the back of what would be called a paddy wagon, kind of a police van. And I said, why are you arresting us? And they said, no, you're vagrants. Vagrants in our own country, within a stone's throw of my own home. Mm. So that was one memory from my childhood. I remember seeing very many hungry people. Just hungry people. Growing up in the village, there were fewer things. No access to many utilities that we should take for granted. Running water, electricity, and so on. And then there was just the cruelty of life. The cruelty of life. So those are the things that really stuck in my mind. Obviously, there were very good things as well. I mean, I had a great family, I had great friends, and so on. But, when they report the news, they don't report safe landings of airplanes. They only report
when it crashes.
So I was thinking about those things that we did not have. And those are the things that drove me to form the commission. Obviously, there was police violence, there was police brutality, the political space was not open, the press was not free. There are all these things that drove us to do these things. And so we were trying to create a society of possibility where individuals like yourselves and myself, for example, could realize our human potential. That was a dream. And as I've said, that dream has not been achieved. Obviously, there have been some steps that encouraging. The 2010 Constitution, the creation of institutions of governance that sometimes function, not always. So some of those things are good. The formation of the commission, the bringing the commission home, because after we formed it in the United States, we brought it home, and Maina Kiai, came here to be our first executive director. That was a very big step, I thought, and today, I think it's taken for granted that such institutions can exist, and they do exist. Sometimes, of course, with some difficulty, but they do exist.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Professor, if you look at the progress of our march towards democratic freedom, Where would you place us on a scale of 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Where 1 being dismal and 10 being excellent.
It's like I said, it's a journey and it's a process. And sometimes it's a 2-step forward and a 1-step backward proposition. I would say that since 1991, when the doors were opened, or not really opened, but forced open by individuals whom you all know, the people we are calling second liberators, people like Anyang' Nyong'o, people like Orengo, people like Mutunga, people like even Martha Karua, Chai Tingilu, of course Raila Odinga and others. When they forced, and some of us we helped, when that was forced open, that was a great moment of hope. And we thought there were possibilities, But, transforming societies is a very big challenge. Freedom comes 1 small inch by 1 small inch. It does not come in miles. And to transform a culture of autocracy, of dictatorship, of penury, of deprivation is very difficult. So when I look back, I see this movement back and forth of change. Today we can sit here and we can talk openly. It used to be that you would come and talk like this and then you would be carried away. So I would say, I don't want to upset my fellow Kenyans, but I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I would judge us, a very difficult 3.
Aye. Prof, surely. With all those things that you've said, you land at 3. Over the last couple of years, even in the last elections, people who have followed you closely have seen you openly come out to say that you think that the best person to move us forward, maybe hopefully to even take us now beyond 5, would be Raila Odinga.
Yes.
Why? Is it because he's been in the trenches? Is it because when you look at the journey, he is among those that are considered the leaders of the second liberation? Or is it because of the person that he is? Why Raila? Why not anybody else? Why not Martha Karua? Or Kiraitu Murungi? Or Makao Mutua?
Yeah, so difficult moments, call for people who have been tried and tested and who have delivered, and people who have stood in the breach for the country and who have served selflessly and who do not seek something for themselves. But also people who in their both public and private lives demonstrate a love for the country. I think, unless you've been living in Mars or even another further planet like Pluto, you will be aware of what Mr. Odinga has done for this country at great cost to himself and to his family. I know him as a personal friend, but I also know him as a political soulmate. And I know him as a person who has tried whichever way to move this country forward from, on the scale of 1 to 10, from a 1 to a 2 to a 3. And I would say even that 3, that we are where we are today, according to me, has a lot to do with him. Mr. Odinga is our Mandela. Okay? And, I would say, without batting an eyelid, that he's the first among equals of the people that you have mentioned, myself included. And I think it's only proper and fair for him to be given this opportunity by the people of this country to show us what he can do in the highest office in the land.
You talk about transforming societies, that it is through the transformation of society that you can start to take steps towards a country being free.
Yes.
Would you say, from what you see, or even, examples of when these leaders, when this one that you're talking about has been in positions of influence, has been in positions of power, have you seen steps towards a transformation of society that could essentially lead towards freedom? Because they say you won't just be able to pick up the mantle and start running. There must have been markers along the way that would show that you can actually do it if given the opportunity.
Yeah. So obviously I speak about Mr. Odinga as an iconic, even historic figure. I talk about him as someone who has, not just, talked, but has walked the talk. Someone who laid down a gauntlet and said, I'll do anything for this country. I'll pay any price for this country. So sacrifice is one thing that's very important. I think the second thing that's very important is to show that he loves other people and other things other than himself. And I think he has shown that. I think when he was given an opportunity, for example, as a minister and as a prime minister, he produced. Some of the ideas that are being implemented today by this government, started with him. Like some of this infrastructure that we are talking about, that we are seeing today. Some of the steps to cut corruption in this country. I remember, him saying that if you're a contractor, and you want to do a project, you needed like 20 signatures, and every signature was a toll station for harvesting, resources, for rent seeking. He cut that down, I think, to 5 signatures. So he's shown that he can do these things. We've seen what he did, leading us to the 2010 Constitution. That was him. We saw what he did with giving us, I think this country's most effective president. That was Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki was not perfect. We all know that. But Mwai Kibaki was made president by Mr. Odinga, by that statement at Uhuru Park, Kibaki Tosha. So, my sister, I hope that you're not going to argue with me on these ones. These ones are like plain and clear sort of markers on the journey to freedom that Mr. Odinga has paid for us. So I would just say that, and he did that without occupying the highest office in the land. Okay, you've seen what happened in 2017, right? The election is bungled or stolen, whichever way you want to put it. The country is on tenterhooks. Businesses are collapsing. People have no hope. Then he reaches across the aisle, as he did, and shakes the hand of his foe. So part of the peace that we enjoy today, even that number 3 that I was talking about, is because
is contributed by Raila.
It's because of the handshake.
I know what he has done.
Exactly.
So now that the president and Raila are working very closely,
yes,
is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?
I don't know whether it was the former U.S. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld who said that you do not make peace with your friends. You make peace with your foes, your opponents, your enemies. And, these two gentlemen have gone head to head several times. They have also collaborated in the past. As you know, they defeated
You're speaking of the referendum?
The referendum together. Yes. They worked together during that period. Their parents, as you know, were together at one point, then they fell apart. And so there's historical significance in all of these things. And I would say that that it's always a good thing, when people on opposite ends of the scale come back together for the sake of the country. But I also want to say, we live in a country that is fractured along ethnic lines. And one of the biggest fault lines in this country has been between the Luo and the Kikuyu. And I would say, and I would challenge anyone to say the opposite, that when those two communities work together, good things happen for this country. So the healing that I think is manifest, I think it's a good thing. So I would say it's a good thing for them to work together.
Let's take a break at this point. It's 29 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. We have in studio Professor Mutua. He is the chair of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. He is a law professor. He's also a very strong campaigner for Raila Odinga's presidency. We are talking about the art of political persuasion. What is it that we are seeing in the country and what's happening in our politics? And that's the conversation we'll be having in the second half of this hour. Joining us shortly after we take a look at the weather and traffic. This is the Situation Room on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, on Facebook and on YouTube. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I like listening to you guys. You're the default radio station in my car in the morning. Even the children listen to you guys.
I agree Parliament has failed this country. And I will say it again. We have not done what we should have done.
We know in this country, the Kenya prison sector is one of the most underfunded sector.
The way it is being done and the way we're calling it Huduma Namba the Msema Kweli
is because all records will be there.
You know, there are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes. Anything that the president does that is not in accord with the constitution is an illegal act. He shouldn't be doing it and he should be sitting here and trying to sort of guise it up.
I totally believe live transmission of results and allowing Kenyans to be able to view all these results. I believe that it will be impossible to steal elections.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Nairobi, sun peeking through those clouds at some point, highs of 26 and lows of 16. It's 18 degrees and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 27 and lows of 15. We'll see lows of 13 in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 15, highs of 28, and mostly cloudy at 13, highs of 23 and lows of 11 in Eldoret. The sun is out in Mombasa at 28, highs of 33 and lows of 25. And we're looking at cloudy conditions in Malindi at 28, highs of 32. It's cloudy in Kisumu at 22, highs of 26 and lows of 19 today, while Kakamega is cloudy as well at 21. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 15. It's raining in Kampala at 19, highs of 26, and sunny conditions at 29 in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 33 and lows of 27. Johannesburg is sunny at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 15, while it's mostly clear in Lagos at 25. We'll see highs of 34. It's sunny at 23 in Kinshasa, highs of 33, down to lows of 23.
Chilled Spice.
Okay, so it continues traffic hours where we are. Raila Odinga Way going on to Ngong Road this morning. Jam-packed into the CBD as well. Jogoro is still doing that thing this morning. Uhuru Highway is where most of the headache is this morning. If you couldn't have avoided that and you're stuck there, it's going to be a while. Sorry to be the bringer of bad news, but that's what it looks like today. Jam-packed all the way through to Westlands, in and outbound traffic. The Thika Superhighway quite busy as well. Survey, wow. Okay, so we're still going a lot further past that outer ring junction. Kiambu Road also jam-packed. Bumper to bumper action here. You could try outer ring and come all the way back, but that wouldn't make much sense. It looks like we are going to have to stay on this one. Kangunda Road also continues, as does Juja Road. We are smack dab in the middle of traffic hour. We'll get out of it soon enough. Talk to us before then, though, on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
7
Nairobi.
minutes to 9. The conversation continues with Professor Mutua. Prof, now that your friend Raila Odinga shook hands with the president, do you now feel a bit better and more comfortable referring to Uhuru Kenyatta as President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Well, I mean, whether I refer to him as president or not is really immaterial. Because I've said before, I think you saw the conversation I had with one Kisumu guy and others when I was being interviewed for the position of Chief Justice. They were stuck on this point, you know. But the point really is immaterial. The Constitution, the courts, and other instruments of power, declared him so. I was just as a private citizen exercising my conscience to protest what I thought was an election that had gone wrong.
My question is whether your conscience is now clearer.
I would not talk about my conscience. I would simply say that there are facts on the ground, and those facts, I recognize them. I would simply say that, obviously, the facts of that election have not changed, but the two competitors have come together, to work together. I recognize that fact as well, and it's good for the country. So it's not about my conscience. Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
I don't know why you don't want us to go there, because I mean it's matter of public conversation.
Well, that
is he Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta or is he President Uhuru Kenyatta to you, Professor Mutua?
Well, the last time I checked, his gender was male. He's Mr. Mr. Kenyatta.
It's a point well made, and perhaps it's a pointer to the exercise of personal freedoms that we are assured of within our constitution. Sometimes the manifestation of it may not be what we think it ought to be, but there it is. Now,
Yes.
Listening to you eloquently listing and putting across values and qualities that you attribute to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, completely impressive. But then to a self-declared supporter of the man, I expect nothing less. Yes, you wouldn't really be a stalwart supporter if you didn't extol the virtues that you thought were outstanding and that people ought to consider.
Yes.
One little question, though.
Yes.
Does our history also support your views?
Yes. So sometimes, I wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And when I do, I criticize myself, for my shortcomings.
Hey, Prof, what sort of bed do you sleep in?
It's a white body bed.
Right. That's the only way.
But the next question is, which side of the bed do you sleep on?
Yeah. So this is just to say that all of us are fallible as human beings. I think for Christians, they say that we have all fallen short
of the glory of God.
Of the glory of God. And so we all need some redemption. Mr. Odinga is not perfect. No one is. And I'm sure he'll be the first one to agree with that. He's taken some political steps in the past that have been criticized. We all know that. But I think he's always kept his eyes on the prize, which was the freedom for this country. I think that I challenge anyone, including your esteemed self.
Just pause for a second. Did you two hear?
We got it. We understand
completely
that you milk
esteemed.
this for some time. Thank you for that, Prof.
He's been anointed. Right. Yeah. That prefix shall forever precede his name. Esteemed.
Esteemed city.
Esteemed. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, I challenge anyone, including yourself, and I have a lot of respect for your views, as I do for everyone on this panel, that if you're always, when you are looking at individuals and their records, you always weigh that, the positive and the negative together, and you look at where the ledger comes out. And I think anyone who is fair-minded, anyone who has read our history and understands it, not just read it, but really understands it, will be hard-pressed, really. I mean, to when you put Kenyans on a scale and compare them, to find another political leader in this country who is as qualified as Mr. Odinga to be president. I think actually he's the most qualified person to ever run for the presidency of this country.
Be that as it may, Prof, we can't run away from the fact that that is peppered with personal perception. True. And there are people who will make decisions when they have weighed one to the other, the personal perception will come into play.
Yes.
So without talking specifically about personalities or characters, from your point of view, having dealt with human rights issues over the last 40 years, dealt with issues of socialism in the country, etc., etc., what would be the advice to give to the voter right now, if possible from as an unbiased position as possible? How do you make a decision, weighing, knowing fully well that your perception comes into play?
Yes.
It will be very difficult, for example, to dissuade you from a position that you have taken because your perception has come into play.
Yes.
The experience that I have had as a voter comes into play.
Sure.
The one that he has had, and many other Kenyans will make a decision based on what they have perceived to be.
Yes.
How do you make a decision with all of those things coming into play?
Yeah, I mean, I think the franchise, which is the right of a citizen to elect their leaders or those who serve them. As I told Eric earlier, I like the word serve as opposed to lead. Who will serve them? It's a complex choice, and the electorate, sometimes doesn't always have the facts, or doesn't always vote based upon, the desirable qualities that they should be looking at. Partly because I said our people are, unfree, and there are issues that they struggle with. There are questions of ethnicity. There are questions of all sorts of biases. Some of which you mentioned. What I would tell them as voters is to look at what people have done for the country, objectively. Looking at the leading candidates, ask yourself, what has this person done for me? Look at the party platforms that are being advanced. Does this person want to create a country of empathy or a country of antipathy? Okay? Does this person want to fight corruption? Which corruption, as you know, has gone to the bone marrow of our people. Today, it really makes me weep, with despair, but also disgust, when I see politicians dishing out money to people to come to political rallies. Openly. What kind of a person, first of all, dishes money like that, and what kind of a person takes it? Okay. We are a broken people. And so, as a broken people, we don't always make the right choices. You've seen in parts of this country, drug dealers elected to public office. You've seen thieves of public purses, of the public treasury, elected to leadership. You've seen land grabbers. You've seen rapists. And we know them. Okay, you've seen murderers in office. This says to me that our system is also broken, but that also our people are broken. So at some point, we're going to have to reset our moral calculus to do that. So I would say to you, if I mean, these are objective things I'm talking about. They're not subjective. They are facts. Some of these people I'm mentioning, criminals are sitting in office. So what I would say to you is look at what the people who are offering themselves for leadership or for service for the country have done and what they propose to do. But don't just look at empty language, because I've seen some people running around with slogans, and telling people to vote for slogans, slogans that do not mean much. Shall I say? I think that my friend here is looking at me with curiosity.
Are you waiting for the slogans? say two of the leading slogans, for example. Which one?
Well, I think it's. I think so. So there's on the other side of the aisle. There's a gentleman who has been talking about wheelbarrows and bottom up. But the wheelbarrow. Let me just say this because I got to get it out. The wheelbarrow is a pre-industrial Stone Age implement. Stone Age implement. How can that surely be an aspiration for any person in this country? It's a tool for slave labor. It's a tool for slave labor. Let me tell you that. You have seen people pushing wheelbarrows, right? And rickshaws and so on. How can that be an aspiration in the computer age? So that's one slogan. The other slogan, of course, is this question of hustling and so on, which has a double meaning.
Quadruple.
Quadruple meaning, and so I think I will allow the listener to decide which meaning the word hustler,
But those aren't the only narratives that we keep hearing. We hear Azimio.
Yes. So on the other side, but I had to talk about the other side, right? Just to be fair, because she was accusing me of just talking about my side.
Accusing? Not just yet.
So your side has Azimio.
My side really has, what we are trying to do is to create a society of opportunity, a society of inclusion.
Opportunity or equal opportunity?
A society of equal opportunity where when you come to the table, you are assured of a fair shake. A society in which we are going to allow people to be capacitated in so many ways. That's what we are talking about. We're not so much running on slogans. We are not. We are running on substance.
So you said...
We're running on substance, not slogans.
Let me bring you back to what you said. I mean, we are a broken society. We are a broken people.
Yes.
And at some point, we'll need to come together and re-engineer our own fabric as a country.
Yes, our own moral fiber.
Do you think Raila is the man for the job, and why? Because when you're saying all these things, Raila has actually held one of the highest offices in the land.
Yes.
As core head of government, constitutionally mandated head of government in this country. When he was head of government, he then also, of course, faced with the realities of the day. And that's part of my question. There's the political reality and the actual reality of our system. With the kind of corruption that we have in this system, with the kind of mismanagement that we have, are you not setting are you not setting Raila up for failure by placing such high expectations of the man when clearly, when he was head of government for 5 years, did we see a drop in corruption? We didn't. When he was head of government for 5 years, did we see a more efficient government? We necessarily did not.
Yeah, so obviously one can critique any record, right? But first of all, let me correct something that you said, with all due respect. That Mr. Odinga was co-head of government. He was not. The office of Prime Minister was subordinate to the office of the President. Mr. Odinga could only do those things that the President allowed him to do in that office. And there were many disagreements. With Mr. Kibaki, there were many disagreements. They worked together, but there were many disagreements.
Of course, I'll give a lot of the leeway to you because you are the legal man and you are there sitting. But if my memory serves me right,
yes,
the accord, the Peace and Reconciliation Accord,
yes,
plus the Act,
yes,
plus the changing of the Constitution,
yes,
introducing the position of Prime Minister,
yes,
said that decisions of government shall be made in consultation
yes,
between the two people. So there was a head of state, yes.
Yes.
But even Kibaki could not make decisions in his government without Raila's approval. That's why, for example, Kioko Kilukumi could not become the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Yeah, I would say that, there is what is written on paper and what is done in practice. The instruments of the state, of power, are not exercised on paper. They are exercised in actual practice. And whereas I would say, and agree with you partly, that they work together, they consulted at times, but Mr. Kibaki clearly ran the government, and some of the things that Mr. Odinga wanted to do could not be done. That's just fact. I would say that, however, in areas where he was permitted to do something, like initiate infrastructure, clean up some of the corrupt practices, he did that, and he did that very well, in fact. I think what you want to do, Eric, is to look at what Mr. Odinga was able to do in that limited space and time. The other thing I think also that you should think about is, there are some people who are in power in this country. We do not know where their money came from. Okay? I can assure you that Mr. Odinga did not use that office, okay, to steal from the public. And that, to me, is one important indicia of the kind of man that he is.
Actually, my question, Prof, is
yes.
That was just a limited power.
Yes.
If he gets the full power of the state,
yes,
as guaranteed in the Constitution,
yes,
do you actually believe that Raila Odinga would get into office and be able to deal with these realities that we have?
Yes.
And, for example, address corruption?
Yes. So it's a good question, Eric. Okay? And, of course, the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. Okay? We agree on that, don't we? Yeah, we agree on that. But Mr. Odinga is not going to become president and then govern alone. Okay? No one ever runs the state by themselves. It is the character and the quality of the people that you have around you, the kind of people that you are going to appoint and why you are going to appoint them, and the kind of leeway that you are going to give them to execute on the mandate that you ran on, that matters. I can assure you that if Mr. Odinga is fortunate enough to be given this mandate by the people of Kenya, he is going to put together an A-team. Do you know, Eric, that this country has a lot of talent?
Yes.
Yeah. I
mean,
know some of it is just sitting around around the table here. Myself excluded. But some esteemed.
I mean.
And look at you. I mean, I was looking at you. Read the traffic stuff there, and I was blown away. So look, a lot of talent here. This talent has not been tapped and given, a free hand, to work. That is what he is going to do, and don't be surprised if he comes for you and asks you to go serve.
The professor here has changed tact. He's become a prophet. Professor, one of the things that I think is most difficult, if you are someone who observes leadership from an academic perspective like ourselves here,
yes,
and try to analyze things as we read and as we see them as they evolve, we are prescriptive. We tend to be prescriptive, and we talk about they should have done this, they could have done this. But even as we prescribe and as we look at these things closely, the thing that we realize, these things are never quite as easy as we think.
Yes.
And that there's a lot more to it than even we know.
Yes.
I'm going back to the question Eric was asking, because to me it's a pertinent question. Given how we know statecraft functions, and that it isn't in the leadership and the people who will be chosen, but there is an arm of the system that is in the civil service and other complementary services that actually run the country.
Yes.
And if they function with a certain understanding and a certain ethos, how do you change this so that we actually see change? Because they, in my opinion, it's not the politician. The politicians talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
Yes.
They are the ones who actually ensure that things work as they ought to.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, turning around a country, as you correctly point out, is like turning around the Titanic or turning around a big aircraft carrier. It's a big, massive job. And this underbelly of the state called the civil service, it's both a blessing and it's a curse. It's a blessing because it makes our systems function. But it's also a curse because by nature it's a conservative instrumentality that is difficult to transform. If it is corrupt, if it is inert, meaning that it doesn't move with agility, it's a problem, right? We can agree on that. But I think we can also agree that Kenya's civil service, for the longest of times, has done actually well as a professional service. Okay?
How do you judge this? How do you arrive at this understanding that they have done well?
So for example, if you just compare, it's a comparative statement. If you compare it with the civil services of other countries around the continent, they have done much better. It's a comparative thing. But we tend to know them more for, the corruption, and the rent seeking and so on that they have engaged in, than for the good things that they have done. They also have done some good things. So I think that the corrupt part can be sort of excised, okay, and taken out. But let me just say this: the power of demonstration is very important. The power of demonstration, leadership comes from the top. The tone that the president and the senior people set is very, very important. When we say that we are going to be doing zero tolerance for corruption, when we say that we're going to sanction people without pity for corruption, when we say that we're going to lock them up and throw away the key, we actually mean it. Sometimes you just need to use particular people who are corrupt to set an example and to set a tone, so that other people can understand that the day has changed.
There's a new sheriff.
I tell you, all of you, that how many serious thieves have been decapitated in this country? I mean, legally decapitated, not physically. How many? I mean, almost none. They go in, they come out. They go in, they go out. If you touch someone, they say, "Oh, now these people are finishing, quote unquote, our people," and so on and so forth.
They appeal it to within a branch of its life.
Yeah. That's how you reform the civil service. But I'm saying that there are good people in there. Let us not throw away the baby with the bathwater.
There are very many
good people.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah, and we want to retain those, and we want to give them a reason to continue being good.
It's 3 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Professor Mutua is with us. Let's say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. We continue this conversation on SpiceFM and also on YouTube and Facebook, SpiceFM KE.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's possible for us to reform the civil service. It's possible for very many things to happen in this country. There are many people who are listening, and just like Ndu said, everybody has their own persuasion based on whether it's ethnic or whether it's their history with a person. Like your history with Raila, for example, has influenced how you view Raila. You've interacted with him closely. and everybody else. How would you persuade somebody who is currently persuaded on somebody else to now see things your way?
So I think that we must have respectful conversations. You know, the people who support our opponents, are, good people. So I think the key is just to have respectful conversations with them, understanding that they have a right to make their own choices, but persuading them that, the grass will be greener on our side than on that side. You just have to respect people, and you must work hard for every vote. Take nothing for granted. Work hard for it.
Do you believe that with the way we are going, with the kind of changes that we're having to the law at this point in time, we are heading toward free, fair, credible, verifiable election?
Our elections have for the longest been shambolic. I don't think that's a revelation. It is not a eureka moment. It is just, it is a statement of fact. Yeah, because our IEBC has not done the job. And even before then, when Kivuito was there and others were there, there have been problems. That's why Mr. Odinga has won many times before and been denied. But I hope that this time around, there will be a free and fair election which reflects the will of the electors.
Asante sana. Professor Mutua, thank you very much for coming. Come again soon.
I will do so.
Right? As we head into the deep thick of the politics of the country, let's continue debating on your side and the other sides, and also looking at the future of the country. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. The MP for Gatondo South, the Honorable Moses Kuria. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta has welcomed an announcement by the United Arab Emirates to establish an innovation and entrepreneurship center in Kenya. The announcement is part of the outcomes of the president's bilateral talks with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces in Abu Dhabi. The Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center will focus on launching programs, workshops and initiatives geared towards providing aspiring and established Kenyan entrepreneurs with guidance on how they can inject innovation into the entrepreneurial endeavors to boost the national economy. Now, as the campaign period gathers momentum with politicians engaging in war votes in a bid to move voters to their respective sides, an Isiolo cleric has called for tolerance among the various political players and their supporters, warning that if not careful with what they say, they could easily mislead Kenyans into unnecessary conflict. Methodist Church of Kenya Isiolo Town Church Reverend Gideon Muguna noted that politicians should be cautious of the power that the town wields and use it responsibly to foster peaceful coexistence among all Kenyans, and desist from making remarks that are likely to incite members of the public against each other or threaten national security. The cleric argued that the young generation of Kenyans need guidance and that politicians need to realize that they are role models to the young people who look up to them for mentorship and therefore should behave accordingly, leading by example for a better society in future. And Uasin Gishu County Governor Jackson Mandago has called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to take personal intervention on matters security along Kerio Valley. The governor, who also doubles up as North Rift Economic Bloc Chair, called on the head of state to ensure peace is restored in the region. He also asked Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i to ensure security is beefed up to allow candidates in the affected areas to sit for their exams. And the completion of the competency-based curriculum classrooms across the country is on course, with over 2,000 classrooms completed and 350 already commissioned by the Education Ministry officials. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha said the total completion rate of the 6,497 classrooms was at 70%, with the contractors put on notice to ensure they beat the March 7th deadline. The CS, who spoke while commissioning 2 CBC classrooms at Manwe High School, said Central and Nairobi counties lack lagged behind as Garissa, Mandera and Wajir took the lead in completion rates at 99%, 94% and 90% respectively. He said education officials will campaign counties that are recording slow progress to ensure they meet the deadlines. And a 20-year-old barber is said to be arraigned at an Embu court for allegedly defiling a primary school girl at his shop when she went to have a shave. The Embu West Sub-County Police Commander Julius Kiumbure said the suspect will be arraigned once investigations are complete. He said a doctor's report had confirmed that indeed the girl had been defiled. The girl is said to have informed the parents that the suspect took advantage of her when she went for a shave at the barber shop on her way home after classes. And Mount Kenya East leaders are stuck between supporting Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza coalitions even as the 2022 elections date closes in. The Kiraitu Murungi and Devolution Empowerment Party Mombasa is yet to make a decision on who to support in the 2022 general elections. Speaking during a ceremony to receive XPS leader Namolo to the Mombasa party, leaders said they were weighing options on the parties to engage for a coalition. The leader said they will have to sign a pre-election agreement and are determined to be in government, hence starting to make decisions on who to support as a presidential candidate. And several families living near power lines in Voi have been given 7 days to move or their houses will be brought down. The residents are claiming that they bought the lands they are living in for more than 6 years now. They are asking for more time to organize themselves before they can leave. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It continues, and quite a lot of it on Gong Road this morning, getting out into the city. We'll see that continuing for some time. Uhuru Highway with some traffic as well. Feeding off of Langata Road, that is still an absolute mess today. The Thika Superhighway, hot and heavy with a lot of traffic going into the city. And we're also looking at now Limuru Road, continuing with quite some of it in and outbound, just as you get past City Park and then through towards the Aga Khan Hospital. Okay. Eastern part of the city as well, Mombasa Road, then heading off towards Outer Ring, North Airport Road. That whole area still continues. We are in traffic hour. It'll be there for some time. Let's talk, guys. Where might you be stuck? Where you find a good route? Let us know, because it's that kind of a Monday. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
It
is
is 6 minutes after
Situation
9.
Room,
The conversation
the only
continues
way
the
to start your day.
February 2022. We have a new guest in the studio, and this is the MP for Gatundu South, the Honorable Moses Kuria. Before we introduce him, let's hear the proverb from the esteemed C.T. Muga.
Thank you very much, Eric. If you are a peg, endure the knocking. If you are a mallet, strike.
If you're a peg, endure
The knocking.
If you're a mallet,
strike. You know, the underlying assumption here that if you're a peg, you will remain a peg. You don't have to. And even if you're a mallet, you'll remain a mallet. You
Well,
don't have to.
depending on the force the mallet hits you, man, you can disintegrate.
To pieces of pegs.
Pieces.
Precisely. So you stop being a peg, you become pegs. Or pieces of a peg.
If you're a peg,
What
and
once
you are
was peg?
And a mallet by its very nature is wooden. So it too can splinter and can also disintegrate.
Yeah, but being told to endure the pain is basically just telling you that what you need to do is accept your fate.
This is your job.
You're a peg.
Do it.
Accept it.
You see, there's an element of acceptance that is perhaps not emphasized adequately, the learning aspect. As you learn to accept your position, you learn things that you didn't know before. That you don't have to keep accepting it.
Okay. Let's welcome the guest, the Honorable Moses Kuria, the MP for Katondo South. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on the show.
Asante sana.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you.
And it's also good to have you back in the country. We have been following your updates from the hospital in Dubai.
Yeah.
Also, even before you went to Dubai, from the hospital in Nairobi, with what happened to you. But just tell us that story. I mean, more than 130 days not walking on your feet.
Yeah, Eric, I just had an accident with some heating gadget, some South Korean heating gadget that went badly off. That's all.
So was it substandard? Was it accidental?
I think it's a combination of being substandard, but most important thing that we have medical appliances that are being applied by non-medical personnel. That's what I would. That's a big for me. The big, and that's actually the crusade that I want to take. That if you use there's no good or bad medical device. It is good or bad in the opinion of the person who is qualified, to administer it. So you cannot, even if you have got the best appliance, medical appliance, you go down the streets here, and then you just use it without guidance from the medical personnel. So we need to clamp down on everyone who is, because like now the company that sold me this gadget, they don't have a single qualified doctor. And they have got even wards where they are admitting people. They have got in Eldoret like 100 bed capacity, in Thika, in Muranga, in all these places.
Had they passed themselves off as people who are experts in this, that they have qualified
even
personnel?
when we called them to Parliament, I don't know if you followed the parliamentary proceedings when I raised the matter with the Committee of Health, they admitted that they don't have the experts. They said they have got experts in alternative medicine, whatever that means.
So what exactly is their licensure for?
That's the whole issue. They have no license. They don't have a license. They just say that their products are licensed by KEBS. We have got two bodies that are supposed to safeguard your health. The Kenya Medical Practitioners and the Dentist Board, which is now cancelled, and Farmers and Poisons. None of them. None. And when you ask the Farmers and Poisons people, they say that it's not within their purview. That all is, it's a big issue.
What did this mean for you, Mheshimiwa? What did it mean for you now, having had this accident and needed to go to hospital? So what did that mean for you? I mean, days away from work, having to endure this procedure, of course, the pain that went. What did it mean for you? I'm trying to make a link then between, not paying attention to requirements for proper medical practice and procedure in the country.
Correct.
And then the disadvantages that it has upon individuals.
Absolutely. It was, this happened on one afternoon, over, let's say 3-4 hours. And, you couldn't tell, but I even came for an interview on KTN that particular evening when I was already having that degree burns. That shows that the damage is very slow coming. And to answer your question, it's 4 hours vis-a-vis 6 months literally. So the reason from all this is that we need, and I'm a member of Parliament, so maybe I can have avenues for records.
Yep.
But to imagine how many people out there that don't have that kind of access of, So it's an issue that we need to deal with.
Sure. It just shines light then on the next thing that I would like to ask about, is that then you were put in a situation maybe then when you had to come to grips with a lot of people in the country then are suffering from.
Absolutely. I always try to, when I'm in a personal situation, I always try, because I'm a leader, I always try to remove myself from that equation and to put, that guy down there who who doesn't know SpiceFM, but they are going through this. So it's a big issue. But also the holistic, not just how I got into the accident, but even the whole thing of healthcare in this country. We really need to do a lot to overhaul the architecture of healthcare.
What exactly was the issue? From your own analysis of this particular situation, is it an absence of law? Is it a lack of clarity on law? Is it a lack of capacity for the institutions? What exactly is it that would then lead us to having such kind of products being sold in the country?
That's a good question. And I took this issue with the Farmers and Poisons CEO, and I told him, the law does not. That's why we want to have an equivalent of FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, equivalent, so that you can be able to rein in all this. So we have got fragmented bodies that are looking after, regulation, CAPS and, PPB, the council, as opposed to places like in the US where you have got a single stop, of regulation. I said, I understand all that. You have told me why the law does not allow you to do some few things. So I challenge them, tell me which part in the law currently enables you to or authorizes you to allow those things to happen. So you can look at it either way. Because if they want to use the current regime, the current laws as they are, they can really take action on these things. I don't believe that we keep on implementing more and more and more laws. What happened to what we have now? And by the way, when someone tells you you need more laws in this country, refer them to the penal code. Ask them which part of the penal code allows this to happen. On a very basic level, even before you look for specialized laws. But we can't have laws for everything, Kenyans want to have a law on, coughing and walking, and it's not possible, If you want to take action, if you want to do something good, what we have is already sufficient.
We have a sufficient legal framework.
Legal framework, yes.
To make sure that everything should be running smoothly.
To be running smoothly, yes.
But then there are politicians such as yourselves, Mheshimiwa. You, of course, you saw this when you were still in hospital here. People went and found a clip of you speaking at a public rally somewhere where you were talking about why should we have kept stopping importation of things when business people in this country want to sell?
Because they are better.
And you are there, and you are saying, look, if I want to buy something that is grey, let me buy something that is grey.
Can I ask you, Eric, how did the grey thing come to this country?
Somebody imported it.
What happens in other countries?
They circumvented the legal routes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's something called COC. The country of origin inspection. And that's what the problem in this country is, that we assume we are the only country in the world. We need to benchmark with how other people do it. In other countries, you don't stop people at the port, fungua hii container, I look at what's there. We depend on pre-shipment inspection at those countries. So when you circumvent, when you bring something from China or from Korea or from some other country, and you fail to take the pre-shipment procedures in that particular country, if it is bad, let it not get to the high seas to come here. If it comes here, don't punish that woman trader there who is depending on that business to feed their children. I'm saying don't push the problems, the failure of government or people in authority to weak people. Yeah? Because what is it? Let's take a trader, a woman trader from Nyamakima, has imported phone covers from China. They were told before this container gets to high seas, it was inspected by bodies that are contracted by the government of Kenya.
And cleared
from there. When it comes here, say, what are you asking me now?
To confirm.
To
confirm that what you're actually carrying here is what was inspected.
Which other country does that? Show me one other country. Because trade is global. There's no trade of Yuagishagi. Yeah? Trade is global. So which other country opens, confirm, let me see. That is Stone Age thinking in the 21st century.
There are countries that do that, Mheshimiwa, but usually it's because they suspect
that there may be something
that
criminal
may be
happening.
something
And it's
that,
random.
Yes, that wasn't quite declared.
And that is completely on random. I mean,
it is randomized.
Random, and it is sampled, and
Yes.
it is
Yes.
purely, audit based.
Yes.
It is audit based.
Mhm.
You know what was happening in this country by that particular time? Every container, open this container, finish with Caps. After Caps, go to KRA. After KRA, I don't know, go to who else. Yeah? And you know, the amount of losses our traders were getting through. So there must be a balance, surely. And that is why we call for processes. I'm saying this because this is an area and I'm an expert in terms of processes. There must be processes. Everybody must be good until proven
bad.
Otherwise. In this case, everybody is bad until you prove yourself, not proven, until you prove yourself. So the burden of proof is on a poor woman from Nyamakima.
But you know, Mheshimiwa, where the problem arises, if you ask me, and what seems to be raising the question, because even as we talk about goods being inspected, each and every, I'm sure there are goods that don't undergo that same rigorous process. So the question that comes to my mind as a layman is, what exactly am I seeing here? Is it that it's targeted? Are there some imports who people feel are associated with certain people that are being targeted?
Now you actually touch it where it matters, because systemic failure based on negligence and based on corruption. And what I am opposed to is that whole burden of systemic failure. You remove it from that corrupt guy. You remove it from that guy who is supposed to ensure that we have got simple, verifiable processes. You burden it on the weakest person on the chain link, who is that particular trader. If you fix the rest, which is much easier to fix it in all the other stages, then you will not depend on that person. And by the way, people are common mwananchi. You want to do the right things. Yeah. They want to do
largely,
the right
I
things.
would agree.
Yeah,
Largely,
just set for them. Because you know what is the biggest problem in this country? It is not corruption, as you people say. It is not all those things. It is pure lack of systems and processes.
So, looking at the failure of these systems and processes, these have been things that have been there for the longest time. There are people who have grown old thinking about this failure. And then there are those who are in positions to actually right the wrongs that have been done over time. But then we still see that these things have not been done.
I just hope
you're talking about now saying, why do we have to wait to change the law? Why can't we just step in and
absolutely.
sort out some of these things? Why?
Let me tell you something. It is not a law, it's not a process, it's not a set of things, it's a mindset. It's very much easy to point a finger at so and so and so and so. Until as a country we move our mindset to accept law and order. Can I tell you something? I have spent some time in the last 4 months in Dubai. And, in Dubai, everything is legit. You are allowed to do anything. You want to you want to break traffic, cross break, nobody will come after you. Yeah? Whatever you want to do, you want to overstay on your visa, you just overstay, it's no problem. They have created a set of processes which is acceptable to everybody. That for them, they said, instead of coming to catch you in the traditional way, they touch your pocket, they hurt your pocket. So you get your fines and all those things, and they have spent a lot of time to automate what is already in the mindset. Because you cannot automate what is not in the mindset. What happens here? I can't believe that a judge can give a ruling against Huduma number, which is supposed to be the beginning of putting the foundation. And you find even politicians, politicians something like Huduma number. For me, something like Huduma number, having worked in other jurisdictions, even if it's implemented by the devil, I will support it. Because it is the beginning of the law and order.
But then,
because you need to have,
in all fairness, this particular judgment was because of the thing you're talking about now, processes. That the process did not go as it should have. It was not coming against the Huduma number itself, but saying that the process through which this thing was established, which is the same thing that you're saying, Moses.
I'm sorry, you are wrong. Yeah, all these are vested interests. People in this country are investors in chaos. Chaos is very rewarding to some people. Yeah? it is liberalization of every country has corruption. Don't get me wrong. But corruption in other countries is controlled. And at least it is with so and so. In this country, corruption is liberalized. It's a free market.
For corruption.
Because the food chain of corruption goes from the top of KICC all the way down there.
To the foundation.
So there's so many stakeholders, from the guy from the policeman, from the guy in the port, from the guy in the in the inspection, to the guy in the office, to the guy It's pervasive. And that's what I'm saying. What is going to change this country, really?
I've heard what you said regarding the Huduma number, and you are right. It is a good tool. But how then do you have a situation? Because the gist of what the judge was saying was, you have a tool that is supposed to collect data, some of it very invasive, from the citizenry, and yet there is no framework for protecting that data. There's nothing within our laws that actually protects it. It took us back until something had to be created to ensure that, okay, now this has now been formed. The data is now being protected. So, as you say, it is a good thing, but any good thing without the check and balance, how good is it really?
You know what? If we had implemented the Huduma number properly by now, the pain of privacy, data privacy, could have been worked on backward. But now, let me ask you something.
We implement. Maybe we work on the data protection.
Absolutely, and that's what.
Please explain to me how.
All I'm saying is, yes, and I'm a project manager by profession. Sometimes you implement something. A pass mark of an A, even for an exam, starts with 70%. There's no, and if you get an A of 70 or you get an A of 99, it is still an A. In other countries, what they will do is we are going to, as long as the pass mark is 70%, we are going to implement it because of what we call the bigger good, the bigger picture. Because now the time you have wasted. Let us say, for example, now you come now and implement the data privacy laws, and we've wasted like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. That time, after now you put the data privacy, the data protection, who is going to compensate Kenyans for that opportunity cost of those 7 years? Because it's our country. It's not that me and you telling we are all in one country. If we agree on this is what is the benefit, the principal benefit to be derived from this thing, and say, look, with all our problems, with all the data protection issues, we've managed at least we could have been better in fighting terrorism. People have died. People have died because of terrorism issues that could have been avoided through Huduma.
But without the data protection,
I was listening to some radio from one of the media houses. I was also driving here. So there's one media house, Kikuyu FM station, which is broadcasting all the way from Nyeri. So they were interviewing, common people about their problems and what they would want solved. So there's this guy from Nyeri, he's a border guy, and he was asked about what are your issues as border. Just when I was driving in here. And this guy said, after there is a tracking gadget that is put on the border, and this tracking gadget, if the border is stolen, we are at the mercy of the guy who sold us the border to go and tell us who stole this border. Please go and tell this guy about data protection. Tell this guy from Nyeri now, who could have gone to government if Huduma was working, this could have been solved. Go and tell him about data protection. Tell him there's some boiled potatoes called data protection, which has put your border at risk for 5 years. It is elite. They are elite games. And me, I like to look at a bigger good.
But
we look at small issues, and we have a choice as a country. We have got abundance of choices to keep on looking at those small issues which people in air-conditioned offices and studios can talk about. But please think about that guy in Nyeri who cannot tell you who stole his border simply because he says, Huduma, there was no data protection.
It's the same argument that you've given about the gadgets that put you in hospital. It's the same one. Here you are on the one hand, you're saying, well, let's flout the process. Let's work backwards. Let's go into...
I am not saying we flout the process.
Let's work,
Don't put words in my mouth, Eric.
Let me withdraw flout the process.
Don't put words in my mouth because it's a very important issue.
What are you saying about that?
I'm just saying
yes.
There's a way of implementing systems and there's a way of implementing, large-scale projects. And that large-scale project follows the 80-20 rule, whereby you say, let me focus on the 20% of the events that will give me 80% of the outcomes. And I'm not saying about flouting. I'm just saying there are things that you can be able to
tighten
implement,
as you
and
go.
then this ship, you can fix it when it's sailing. It is possible.
It's the same argument that somebody could argue and say, we allowed these people to open up these facilities. They're helping people. We haven't seen any complaints. They've worked in other countries. We don't have any sufficient mechanisms to rein them in Kenya. We actually don't know who we are, whether it's a pharmacy and poisons board, whether it's a medical and practitioners board, whether it's a council. We don't know who it is.
That's what I'm saying.
Let them start operating.
That's what I'm saying.
Later we shall find out.
And figure it out as we go along.
Data is the foundation of law and order. Yeah, and why I don't mix issues, because my issue on Huduma is because it is a foundation of fixing even all those issues of counterfeit and the things that you're talking about. Because it is a foundation, and because it fixes the multiplier effect, because it fixes so many other issues after. Even for a fault, I'll close my eyes to it. Because if by fixing this, can I tell you something? I used to work in the Gulf world in my earlier years. When I bought my car, in the system, in the Huduma of that country, the system recognized. First of all, when I enter the country, the system recognized I've entered the country. When I bought a car, the system recognized that I have bought a car, and this is my car. When I bought a dog, the system treats the dog the same way as a car. When I got my son was treated in the same way as a dog. You see the cradle to grave. And because of that now, so many other things, policing, inspection, because it's a basis. I'm not saying...
It's all harmonized.
Because it's all harmonized.
Did these countries have a data protection law?
Maybe after 10 years, somebody came and said, wait a minute, let us put this data
system?
protection there. This is here. But you know what? By that time already, the benefits were already accruing to the people. And I'm not trying to bastardize data protection. I'm just trying to say there is so many benefits that could be accrued first. You know what? If I would want to be a president of this country, for only 1 year to just implement this thing, and what are those people asking for 5 years? Just implement law and order. What a tea, yeah? Because we can't continue with this chaos whereby. Do you know something? I am just getting used to being in this country after 4 months. So yesterday I was going to a studio and I found myself, oh my God, let me go back to the house because I've forgotten my mask. I just discovered here I'm going back for the mask because it's for protecting me. But I am still working with the psyche of Dubai that I'll be arrested or I'll be fined. But nobody puts you to jail. Nobody puts you to jail. But they'll hurt your pocket so much that you'll be saying, hey, wait a minute, I'll better off, So, because also, even the best of people, and most people want to do good things, even the best of the people want to be reminded about some things because that system, that whole system. And, from the rulers to the ruled, it will work so much in harmony because everybody would know their lane, everybody will know that I can't, democracy is a good thing. And really, I am one of the people who have fought for democracy in this country. But also, let's not take it too far as to harm ourselves.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. We'll continue the conversation after this. It's 9:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Moses Kuria, the MP for Katondo South, is in the studio. He just came back into the country over the weekend after having spent months in Dubai where he was undergoing treatment. He's telling us about that experience and the learnings from it. And also, let's talk about the politics of the country. We know that he is a leader of a party. It's called Chama cha Kazi. Chama cha Kazi Party, what's it all about? And let's also talk about the forthcoming general election. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person. Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
The group of leaders we are having now, Kenyans, listen, the chemical composition is the same. You will mold them to ODM, then NASA, you mold them to Kanu, mold them to Jubilee, mold them to any other different color sometimes, but the chemical composition is the same.
It's not about me as Nurdin Haji, but it's about the constitution that I swore to protect. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be investigators and also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position because that position is in the constitution and that's what Kenyans wanted.
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, you're creating and quoting anarchy. Then you create a very dangerous precedent.
A story is told of the first president of the country who also went to visit Mathare, presidential tour. And of course, he went to this place and he introduced himself. So one of the enemies says, hata wewe kuna jina kama yangu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The sun's out in Nairobi at 19. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. Sunny at 20 in Nakuru. 27 will be the high and lows of 15. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 17, highs of 23 and lows of 11, while Nyeri is sunny at 19. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 14. It's also sunny in Mombasa at 30, highs of 34, and we'll see highs of 32 in Malindi, where the sun is just out at 30, see lows of 25. Partly sunny conditions at 23 in Kisumu, highs of 26 and lows of 19, while in Kakamega it's partly sunny at 23, highs of 25 and lows of 15. The sun is out in Kampala now. The rain has subsided. 26 will be the high and lows of 19. While it's cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 29, highs of 33 and lows of 27. Sunny conditions in Lagos at 25, highs of 34 and lows of 25, while at 22, the sun is shining. In Johannesburg, 28 will be the high and lows of 15. Sunny in Kinshasa at 25, highs of 33 and lows of 23. Beijing is sunny going into evening Monday, highs of 5 and lows of -8. 6 degrees and cloudy in Paris. 11 will be the high and lows of 5. 6 is what the low will be in a clear London, currently at 6, highs of 12, and 1 degree early into Monday morning in New York. We'll see highs of 12 and lows of 1.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your
Reaching
life.
closer and closer out of traffic hour this morning. Still some traffic on the Uhuru Highway. It's going to lead you through to Westlands. Looking much better on Mombasa Road today. And Raila Odinga Way, that traffic is subsiding quite significantly as it is on Gong Road. Thika Superhighway still giving it off hot and heavy, bumper to bumper, especially heading towards Survey, out towards the Pangani underpass. And we'll see the same on Limuru Road this morning, as well as Kiambu Road now inbound traffic. Continues. All right. Should be out of traffic hour soon, but it looks still heavy in some parts. Let's keep an eye on things this morning for you. Talk to us through the morning on SpiceFM. KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
The conversation continues. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, the esteemed CT Muga, and the Honourable Moses Kuria, MP for Gatundu South. So, Moses, as you came back to the country last week, you gave an interview to our colleague at the Standard, Nzao Musau, and you were talking about the need for alternative voices to also be given space in the political space. So you have Azimio that is bringing together ODM, PNU, Jubilee and other parties. We have Kenya Kwanza with UDA, with ANC, Ford Kenya and others. We have Mount Kenya Unity Forum where you and others are part of. We have One Kenya Alliance and all. Who's this alternative voice?
Well, I think that we have enough voices now. I think we have enough voices. People are going to pick their jerseys and get to the field. So I don't find anything wrong with what is happening now. I have really no complaint against anyone. I really have no complaint against anyone. Kenya Kwanza have got their freedom. They have picked their team. They have picked their formation. They have picked their team players. That is their right. These other one, Azimio, they have continued to pick their team. They'll continue doing that way. Oka is there for us in Mount Kenya Unity Forum. We have got our agenda. I think, to me, Eric, I was just thinking about this morning. It's time for complaining is up. Pick your team. Pick your team. Focus on it. Don't begrudge people for their choices. It's their choices. You know, I was in Sabasaba in the street fighting for this moment. Yeah, I saw Professor Mutua here earlier. We were there fighting for democracy and multi-partyism, so that we get to this moment when people can be able to pick. So time for complaining is up.
Right. Even as you've seen the evolution of this kind of politics in the country, whereby coalitions now seem to be the things where, you know, you're able to get your best foot forward. Do you think that is the way to go?
Coalitions are important, but it's not necessary. It's not a necessity. It's good to people. If your sole mission is to seek power, then you have to get into a coalition for the purpose of seeking power. But is it everybody's objective to win power? As in terms of winning the presidency?
That's interesting.
You know, there's some people who, it's like me. Being in a team that forms government is secondary. Protecting the few
What's your
things,
primary concern?
Protecting my few things which are of importance to me, like the free enterprise. You know, like policies that create jobs. Yeah, that ensuring that you have got more money into the pockets of people. You know, the slogan of my party is "Kazi na pesa," and it needs no more elaboration. Kazi for jobs. Yeah.
Pesa for money.
And pesa for money in the people's pocket.
It's interesting that you say that. So are you essentially saying that it is not necessary it is not necessary to be in power to get some of these things done?
Absolutely.
How
let's take other democracies. You can only have one party ruling at any one particular time. So what do the other parties do? They ensure that their policies, they see that. And I'm saying this because, I've been a member of Jubilee for the last two parliaments, 11th and 12th parliament. And I've seen that, as parliament, because you are Jubilee and you are royalties to Jubilee, there's nothing you can tell Jubilee. Muthui to State House, you will be somehow the Riot Act. Now, for the longest time, I was a member of the budget committee.
Yep.
The budget, Eric and team, is like 3 trillion. You try to change 1 billion. Okay, let us break it down for Kenyans. We still don't know what are these trillions.
Even a billion is a problem.
1,000 billion is a trillion. So we have 3,000 billions.
0.6.
Yeah? 0.6. And we are trying to change
to move 1
billion from here to here. Whoa. Shida, problem.
Why?
And you got no, because you are upsetting the balance of the budget and what and this and because our budget making process is inverted. So it starts from the executive, it starts from treasury, then it comes to parliament. And when we are in parliament, we are told, no, you can't change this because there's sitting.
And yet you're a budget-making parliament.
We are not a budget-making parliament. We just go there to look for, things, more things to satisfy members. This what budget-making parliament.
But Mheshimiwa, party positioning is considered to be normal in politics. That collective, what do they call it?
Responsibility
dictates that when a party has a certain direction, then
its
all members, despite your individual views, that maybe you fall in line.
You know what falling in line means? Falling in line means in the year 2015, I was sitting in the budget committee, and then there was this issue of 2015, 2016. Then there was this issue of Eurobond. I was sitting somewhere in the budget committee going through papers. And I saw a guy look at this paper and say, there's something here. Kamau Doga was making a presentation. Someone said, there's an issue here. Instead of asking there, he went out on his phone, and I'm sure he called his party principals. That was the Honorable John Buddy. Yeah, who was a very central member of our committee. Because I was with John Buddy in the 11th Parliament, in Budget Committee, and the 12th Parliament. Do you know, I really miss the old John Buddy. Oh, the things that he could pick out from the budget. Now see the collective possession. Bas, tuendelee namna hiyo. See now the collective position what it has done. It has robbed a guy, and I'm saying
Of
this
his independence.
because he was my junior in the business school. We were in the same business school. Yeah, and we were the brains behind, from the respective side of that particular committee. It has robbed the guy of, this country of one of the guys who is very talented at oversight, yeah, on matters budget because of this party position. And that's what I'm saying, like just ensuring that maybe this independence of these parties, like my
But
party,
you have your own
party.
party.
Yeah.
Will you expect a similar independence, or will you allow your members to be as independent as you're now saying?
Well, until you suffer lack of independence, you don't, my friend. You don't,
So you'll allow them?
Of course.
Yeah.
You're saying, so if Chama cha Kazi has members, in the National Assembly.
First of all, people are coming to Chama cha Kazi.
Chama cha Kazi.
Kazi na
The
pesa
slogan
is a
is Kazi na pesa.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's good, he knows what it matters. So,
you're saying that your members,
yeah,
in
they have
Chama cha
members.
Kazi,
You see now,
if they go into the National Assembly and they sit in these committees, and one chooses to ignore some of these things that they are seeing.
Can I tell you something? In Chama cha Kazi, it will not be possible. Because we are going to have a tripartite agreement, which we are going to sign up there with the people, binding the party, the candidate, and the people. Because that's another problem we're having here. So I would want parties which are now trying to form government to account for the performance of their counties. See, now you want ODM to form government, for example.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the performance of the governor of Homa Bay? Because he's an ODM member. So that you say now, the way Homa Bay County is run. This is a sneak preview
of how we can run the
of
country.
how the country will be run. Do you see the county of Nandi, which is run by a Jubilee governor, is run? But what do we find today? There's no party, and I think this is fraud. There's no party that takes responsibility for the performance of the elected leaders on that particular party.
I think there's something that you're saying here that's very interesting and important because of the fact that we keep talking about transformative agenda, etc., etc. But it would seem as though those who are clamoring for this position are doing it solely on the power agenda.
Yeah.
That we can have parties that are into the system that are making sure that certain things are being done. It seems centuries away from what is currently the case. How then will there be a bringing together of the two? That people are forming a party to address issues that they can keep a national government accountable to and for. How can we have that? Because up until now, I do not see, correct me if I'm wrong, where it has happened in the history of this country.
None. Never. It happened during the last years of Kenyatta's regime and the early years of Moi regime, not in the form of a party, but you remember the 6 bearded sisters, who by themselves they were like more than a political party, and they were saying we don't care about who is in government, who is not in government. They really kept the government on its toes. So it has happened in the history of this country, just not within parties,
not from a party position.
Not from a party position. Now what we need to see now is a party, because if you form a party like Chama cha Kazi, there's 2 ways of achieving your agenda. You can say, yes, I'm going to get into a coalition to ensure that I influence the policies of that coalition should they win government, so that we act as an influencer from within. Or you can say now, I am happy to wait in parliament to be the alternative. And people confuse that as defeated opposition. You are defeated, you are a loser.
Yeah.
What about deliberately you say, I don't want to be in government?
Well, ask the question.
Yeah.
Many have
I don't want
raised
to be in
this
government.
question, Moses, that parliament has been pocketed. So then it's very difficult to then have clear positions about what you want to see happening in the country. Is that true?
And that's why now people can't understand, like, you don't have a coalition. You are, since I came back to this country, that's a question I've been asked.
Are you joining
Are you
Kenya
joining
Kwanza?
Azimio or Kenya Kwanza? Uko upande gani? Ndio mimi nimesema tuko upande wa Mungu. The coalition, which is a God's coalition, because people try to box you. You must belong here or here, and they come up with all watermelon. It's just a way of bastardizing. But I'm saying we need to get the vitamin C of that fruit called watermelon. It can be good for this country also. Yeah, in the sense that in whose hands are we safe? to ask like my friend at work.
question.
Yeah? It is in the hands of people who are going to say, I don't care whether it is this side or that side.
Whether this coalition
yeah,
or
this
the
coalition, that coalition, but I'm going to be the safeguard, to be the vanguard, yeah, of things that are going to protect the people. Because we have now socialized our people to believe that the only goodies, the only thing, it's because it's about freebies and goodies that you get because Kenya Kwanza has formed government. So nikienda pale nitapewa kabarabara. It's because, Azimio has formed government, so I'll go to Azimio, I'll get a water project. So in between there, you lose a whole huge space that can be occupied by people who want to influence. Like now, for me, free enterprise, law and order that I'm talking about, I want to go out there and get enough members of parliament and also get enough governors so that I implement that law and order in counties and show as an example to the rest of the country. Because this is where I find failures of even our parties. ODM has got how many governors? I think it's like 20. What a lost opportunity for them to show that this is exactly how a Kenya under ODM would look like. So do you want to tell me that some of the counties, I don't want to mention them, that some of those counties are the hallmark,
shining example
of
good governance.
As
So I hear you then when you're saying that it's important to have parties that don't seek to form government, but that seek to have representation. People being represented in these positions in the National Assembly, in the county assemblies.
And you know what?
Even as governors.
Okay.
Yeah. But what is the downside of that? What is the downside of being this one party that has 20 members in the National Assembly? They are neither in the majority nor the minority coalition.
What about the Greens parties in the West, for example? How many Greens parties rule? Almost none.
Yes.
But they've been part of ruling coalitions.
They can be part of ruling coalitions, mostly after
an election.
After an election, because you need them to govern.
Yes.
I'll tell you, even regional parties. People talk about village parties. There's a party that I admire called SNP in the House of Commons. The Scottish National Party. Has got 55, almost out of 300 and something, 500 something, almost 10%. Scottish National Party, dare you govern without the Scottish National Party? And so when now it comes to now the wheeling and dealing of now this broad coalition forming, then they are able to.
So the strategy is having a strong position in terms of members, such that whoever wants to govern will come and talk to you.
Members and position.
Okay.
Yeah? That you must be very predictable and you must be very understandable. That this is what we...
This is ideology.
Yeah? That this is what we stand for. Then you get the numbers. Then now there, because who can govern without majority in parliament, for example?
Mheshimiwa, let me ask you this question, if I may.
Yeah.
I like what you're saying. So would I then be wrong if I assume that your party will be looking for a certain type of person, a certain type of character, whom they are going to support as a candidate? Because it is this individual and what they stand for that will guarantee the sort of examples you're saying one will see as members of parliament or one can see as governors.
Correct.
So you're going to be strict about this.
Correct. Not just strict. Because, this is our everything. Our party position is our everything. And our party position can only be implemented by the people who are on our party.
Yes.
Yeah? So democracy is overrated. Democracy is overrated, Yeah? Because democracy may not produce Eric Latiff. What about if it's Eric Latiff that I need? I need to go into the people and tell them, look, I as a party, I am the guarantor. I want to introduce the guarantor system in our politics, where the party says, if Eric Latiff fails, please.
Essentially, you're endorsing.
You have to.
So the people will come and ask the party and not the
tripartite agreement between the party, the candidate, and the people.
That would require some serious vetting of candidates.
Absolutely.
In elections.
Absolutely.
And you may end up with those candidates who are not really strong in terms of on the ground.
That's why the party needs to be strong. The party needs to step in for them. Eric, let me give you an example. I've done this experiment. I'm not telling you something from theory. just over a year and a half ago, when I started the business of forming parties, what I was doing, because I've been in several before I ended up to where I am. On 15th of December of 2020, I started this journey, and I went to. There was a by-election in a place called Gaturi in Muranga, and I picked a young lady who I thought that. She understands this vision. She's zero experience. She had tried to vie, I think, 2-3 times, failed in nominations because of the Belgianism. I didn't even know her. I just did my research and I said, I think this is the right person to represent. She had no resources, she had no experience, she had no nothing. I just picked her. Went down, told the people, look, this is our agenda. Barabara, Maji, whatever. It is us as a party. And me as a person, she beat candidates who are much more experienced. Because also here the problem in this country is lack of mentorship. It's something I feel like crying about. You find young people, they're enthusiastic, they have the right ideas, but we just don't know where to start and how to start.
So you
and
believe...
that parties, not me as a person, parties need to fill into this gap and this void of being, mentors, to these professionals who otherwise would say, me, politics is a dirty game. I want to get into politics because to young people who says, I'm too inexperienced to be able to join politics. Yeah. So that is where now party need to come in and say, look, so you people of this place, this person may not be very experienced, but it's only because they never got the
chance and the opportunity.
So,
and we shall do them.
What about if they don't deliver? No, and that's why we come in. Tuko hapa,
to make sure that they do deliver.
If she fails,
so you believe today, Moses, that the person who won in that civic court by-election in Gaturi,
yes,
they voted for this person because they believe that the person has a strong party behind them. Has
yes,
a party
absolutely.
That's going to hold them accountable.
And they have a party which says we are responsible. If I hear complaints from that particular place, I take it as if it's complaints from my own constituency. Yeah. And I sit down with that particular member and I say, look, why am I hearing this? Because it's not your name it is us who came and told the people. Yeah.
But it was a new party at the point.
It was a new party.
So the people were actually not voting for that person or the party. It is Moses Kuria that they looked
Not
at.
just Moses Kuria, but because Moses Kuria gave them some guarantee.
And they had something, they could trust Moses Kuria.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How different is that from these other parties that we have?
Because they don't try to guarantee.
When Uhuru moves from KANU and goes to TNA, and people move into TNA, they're moving into TNA because of the person that Uhuru Kenyatta is
and I'm just
what
saying,
he represents.
Because politics is evolutionary and it has to evolve. That now we need munichagulia huyu na huyu. People need to ask a question. Kwa nini atawafanyia kazi? Then people need to ask gani, then they answer. Then now there is a one question that they're not asking, which I want them to add now.
Na asipofanya.
Yeah? What will you do? Yeah? Because that is really what is missing. And it's not just me. Really, I hope this can be adopted by all the parties. That when you go there and guarantee people. Because when people cry, because the problem in this country is, and that's why I'm saying this democracy is overrated. In fact, I'm advising people to be voting for onions or pepper, chili, piri. So that when you cry, at least you know why you're crying, Huh? But this, you vote for people today. Tomorrow, you start crying. Si mchague pilipili basi, hii pilipili ndio imefanya tulie. But you wonder were these people were they sedated, Because it is just 6 months. Because where I come from, wale watu tulichagua, Mikora ile tulichagua nani? We are in a parliament of 348 in the National Assembly. Only 12 are nominated.
All the others were
elected. The rest people were elected. Hii wanasiasa ni wabaya hapo. Yes, I can account for the 12 who are nominated. But these others, they came through a process. Yeah? That is a process which I'm saying, because so far, if it works so perfect, we have got people who are happy, people are not crying. We cannot defend that particular process and say it is flawless, it's working fine. Because, the there is something called, post-implementation review of every project. Let us now do a post-implementation review of our democratic project. And ask ourselves, okay, this so-called democracy nominations, you go for this nomination, So what then after that? What have we derived from it for these years? Afadhali wakati wa chama moja tukiwa tunajua at least there was a candidate to blame. Yeah? Who is there to blame?
Everybody else.
So,
Mushimo, you raised some very important, I think, national conversations and national debates. And I think it's important to have it. Get to a point where
so
we
the next guy who
start
comes
auditing.
here, especially party leaders, ask them, are you going to look at people who you are asking to vote for your party or your coalition and tell them, I am responsible. The buck stops with me. Yeah? Yeah? Tell them it's not that guy. We are in this tripartite together. The people, the candidate, and as a party. So that if there is a failure, it becomes a personal failure, not a systemic failure. Yeah? But now, personal failure, systemic failure,
they're all mixed up. You don't even know who it is.
Me, I wanted to know when the president tulizunguka na yeye akasema, huko bunge I need
Moses
to pass my agenda. Munichagulie Moses. People of Katulu should have asked him. So if Moses does not deliver, Mr. President, utatufungulia milango ndio tukuje to complain.
Thank you very much for
Are we going to open the doors for you? So now we compete. Now we should be getting up. By the way, I want parties who have been there to campaign on the basis of a report card for their elected members.
Moses, come again soon.
Yeah?
Come again soon.
I want you to ask, please call Baba, call Ruto, call someone, because all of them have been responsibility within their parties. There's nobody who has been outside. It was only me or some JB Muthui. Who can, all the other people should be asked a question. Please account for Mr. Odinga, account for Asanga, account for Awiti.
Let's conclude the conversation with solicitation of a minor. That's what we're talking about, safeguarding our children as they consume the internet. www.ca.go.ke. That's www.ca.go.ke, where you can get all this information about how to keep our children safe when they are online on the internet. Let's end with the proverb city.
Right. If you are a peg, endure the knocking. If you are a mallet, strike.
Peg, endure knocking. Mallet, strike.
Third option. Stop being a peg and become a mallet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Honorable Moses Kuria, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Have a lovely day, people. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is News Dennis Said. Kenyatta Deputy Governor Peter Lamiro and Wingirishi have cautioned the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission against applying double standards while handling matters arising